The woman everyone called untouchable sat weeping at gate 47, mascara streaking her designer suit. The man in the worn denim jacket did what no one else dared. He offered her a napkin. But when her phone lit up with news that saved her empire, Claire Donovan's blood turned cold. The stranger comforting her daughter wasn't just kind. He was the ghost who'd been pulling strings all along. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this tale travels across the world. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The fluorescent lights of Denver International Airport cast their sterile glow across Terminal C, creating harsh shadows that seemed to magnify every exhausted face, every frustrated sigh, every quiet moment of desperation the travelers thought no one else could see. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday in late October, and the airport had that particular quality of liminal emptiness. Not quite abandoned, but hollow enough that every sound echoed with an almost cathedral-like resonance. Daniel Hayes sat in one of those uncomfortable molded plastic chairs that airports seem to purchase specifically to prevent anyone from getting too comfortable. His daughter Lily nestled against his side, her small body radiating the kind of warmth that only a 6-year-old could produce. She wore her favorite purple jacket, the one with the unicorn patch that was starting to fray at the edges, and her blonde hair, so much like her mother's had been, fell in sleepy tangles across her forehead. "Daddy," Lily whispered, her voice carrying that particular quality of childhood exhaustion that could swing from energetic to unconscious in approximately 30 seconds. "Is the plane ever going to come?" Daniel glanced at the departure board for what felt like the 100th time that evening. Delayed still blinked in red letters next to Flight 2847 to Seattle. Their flight. The one that was supposed to have left 2 hours ago. The one that would take them to his sister's house for the weekend, where Lily could play with her cousins and Daniel could maybe, just maybe, get 6 consecutive hours of sleep without worrying about work or bills or whether he was doing this single-parent thing even remotely correctly. "Soon, sweetheart," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face with the kind of gentleness that had become second nature over the past 3 years. "Weather's just being stubborn up in Seattle. The plane's got to wait for it to calm down before it can land safely. Like when I'm stubborn and you make me wait before I can have dessert?" Daniel couldn't help but smile, his tired eyes crinkling at the corners. "Something like that, yeah." Lily seemed satisfied with this explanation, her small fingers playing with the worn pages of the picture book spread across Daniel's lap. The Velveteen Rabbit, a story about love making things real that hit differently now than it had before Sarah died. Before everything changed, before he'd learned that you could rebuild a life from broken pieces, even when some of those pieces could never be found again. He'd been reading to Lily in these quiet moments because the airport felt too big, too impersonal, too much like the world that didn't care whether you were struggling or thriving as long as you kept moving through its corridors. Reading to her was a way of creating a small pocket of warmth in all that cold fluorescence, a bubble of normalcy in the chaos of delayed flights and frustrated travelers. That's when he heard it. The sound was soft at first, almost imperceptible beneath the ambient noise of the terminal. The distant announcements, the rumble of luggage wheels, the murmur of conversations. But Daniel had developed a particular sensitivity to suffering over the years. The way people who've walked through their own valleys learn to recognize others who are lost in the dark. Someone was crying. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind of crying, but the quiet, desperate kind. The kind that came from someone trying very hard not to be seen, not to be heard, not to exist in their moment of complete breakdown. It was the crying of someone who'd forgotten how to ask for help, or who'd learned that asking never brought any. Daniel's eyes tracked the sound to a woman sitting approximately 15 feet away, positioned in one of those corner seats that people chose when they wanted to disappear. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent, the kind of perfectly tailored outfit that spoke of board meetings and power lunches and decisions that affected thousands of lives. Her dark hair was pulled back in what had probably started the day as a sleek professional style, but had since begun to fall apart, strands escaping to frame a face that was currently buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with the kind of silent sobs that felt like they might crack ribs. Daniel felt Lily shift against him, her small body going still in that way children do when they sense something wrong in the world around them. She followed his gaze to the crying woman. "Daddy," Lily whispered, her voice taking on that serious quality she got when she was trying to understand grown-up problems. "Why is that lady sad?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Should we help her?" Daniel hesitated. He'd been raised in the kind of working-class neighborhood where you looked out for your neighbors, where community meant something real and tangible, not just a word people threw around. But he'd also learned that the world had sharp edges, that not everyone wanted help, that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was give someone space to fall apart in private. But then the woman's phone rang, the sharp electronic trill cutting through the quiet of the terminal, and when she pulled it from her designer handbag with shaking hands, Daniel could see the screen light up her tear-stained face. She looked at the caller ID, and something in her expression shifted from despair to something worse, a kind of hollow dread that made Daniel's chest tighten with recognition. She rejected the call. Then another call came. Rejected. Then another. Each time her hands shook a little more, her breathing became a little more ragged, until finally she just turned the phone face down on the seat beside her and pressed her palms against her eyes as if she could physically push the tears back inside. Daniel looked down at Lily, who was watching the woman with the kind of unfiltered empathy that children possess before the world taught them to look away from other people's pain. "You're right," Daniel said softly. "We should check if she's okay." He stood slowly, careful not to disturb the book that slid from his lap, and approached the woman with the kind of cautious gentleness one might use approaching a wounded animal. Not because she was dangerous, but because pain made people unpredictable, made them defensive, made them lash out at the very hands that tried to help. "Excuse me," Daniel said quietly when he was close enough that he wouldn't have to raise his voice. "I don't mean to intrude, but are you all right?" The woman's hands dropped from her face, and for a brief moment Daniel got a full view of her features. She was probably in her mid-30s, with the kind of sharp, intelligent beauty that came from confidence rather than conventional prettiness. Or at least, she probably radiated confidence on a normal day. Right now, she looked shattered. Her eyes, red-rimmed and slightly wild, fixed on him with an expression that cycled through surprise, embarrassment, and finally a kind of weary resignation. "I'm fine," she said automatically, her voice rough from crying. Then, perhaps recognizing how utterly unconvincing that sounded, she added, "Thank you for asking, but I'm fine." Daniel nodded slowly, understanding the lie for what it was, not deception, but self-preservation. "Okay," he said simply. I couldn't help but notice you seemed upset, and I know we're strangers, but if there's anything I can do—" He trailed off, feeling suddenly foolish. What could he possibly do? He was a single father in a worn denim jacket who'd scraped together enough for discount airline tickets to visit family. This woman, with her expensive suit and designer handbag, existed in an entirely different stratosphere. What help could he possibly offer? But then Lily appeared at his side, having apparently decided that her father was taking too long with the helping part. She clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, who'd been with her since she was 2 and showed every year of love in his threadbare fur and missing button eye. "Hi," Lily said with the fearless directness of childhood. "You look really sad. Do you want to hold Mr. Hops? He makes me feel better when I'm sad." The woman blinked, looking down at this small child offering her most precious possession to a complete stranger. Something in her expression cracked, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. But these seemed different somehow, less like despair and more like the kind of crying that came from unexpected kindness. The woman's voice broke. She cleared her throat, tried again. "That's very sweet of you, honey. What's your name?" "Lily. I'm 6 3/4. That's my daddy. His name is Daniel, and he fixes things when they're broken." Daniel felt his cheeks warm slightly. "I'm a mechanic," he explained. "Lily's got an interesting interpretation of what I do." "But you do fix things," Lily insisted with the unshakable logic of 6-year-olds. "You fixed my bike, and the toaster, and that lady Mrs. Henderson's car, even though she couldn't pay you right away, and you said that was okay, because everyone needs help sometimes." The woman was staring at Lily with an expression Daniel couldn't quite read, something between amusement and something deeper, something that looked almost like pain. "Your daughter is very wise," the woman said quietly. "She has her moments." Daniel smiled, then gestured to the empty seats nearby. "Look, I don't know what you're going through, and you absolutely don't have to talk about it. But our flight's delayed for at least another hour, and sitting alone when you're upset is—" He paused, remembering the months after Sarah died when isolation felt like both a refuge and a prison. "It's not great. So if you want some company, no questions, no judgment, we're right over there." The woman looked at him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face, as if trying to determine whether this was some kind of elaborate con, or if there really were still people in the world who offered kindness without expecting anything in return. "I'm Claire," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel. And you've already met Lily and the famous Mr. Hops." For the first time since he'd approached her, Claire's mouth quirked in something that might have been trying to become a smile. "It's nice to meet you all." "Do you want to sit with us?" Lily asked, still holding out the stuffed rabbit. "We're reading The Velveteen Rabbit. It's about how love makes things real. Daddy says that's import-ant." She sounded out the syllables carefully, proud of using such a big word. Claire's hand went to her throat, and Daniel saw her swallow hard. "I'd like that," she said, and this time her voice was steady. "Thank you." They relocated to Daniel's corner of the terminal, Claire settling into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs with the careful movements of someone whose body was exhausted, even if their mind was still racing. Lily immediately climbed into the seat beside her, Mr. Hops now positioned on Claire's lap, as if the stuffed rabbit could provide some kind of protective barrier against whatever demons were chasing her. Daniel sat across from them, giving Claire space while still being present. He'd learned this dance in the support groups he'd attended after Sarah died. How to be available without being intrusive, how to offer presence without demanding engagement. For several minutes, they sat in companionable silence. Daniel had pulled out the picture book again, reading softly to Lily, and he noticed that Claire was listening too, her breathing gradually becoming less ragged, her hands unclenching from the fists they'd been forming. Then Claire's phone buzzed again. She flinched, reaching for it automatically before stopping herself. "You can answer it if you need to," Daniel said gently. "We're not going anywhere." Claire shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Trust me, the last thing I need is to answer that phone." She paused, seeming to wage some internal battle with herself, then added, "It's work, or what used to be work. I'm the CEO of a company. Or I was. I don't even know anymore." Daniel set the book down, giving her his full attention. "Want to talk about it?" "I shouldn't. I barely know you." Sometimes that makes it easier. No history, no judgment, no expectations. Claire looked at him, really looked at him. And Daniel had the strange sensation of being assessed by someone who'd built a career on reading people, on calculating risks and outcomes, on determining who could be trusted and who would disappoint. Whatever she saw in his face must have passed some internal test, because she spoke. "Have you ever built something from nothing?" Claire asked. "Taken an idea, a dream, something that only existed in your head and turned it into something real?" "Sure," Daniel said, thinking of the life he'd constructed for Lily after Sarah's death, the way he'd learned to be both mother and father, the small moments of grace he'd managed to create in the wreckage. "Not anything as impressive as running a company, I'm sure, but yeah, I know what it's like to build something that matters." Claire nodded slowly. "I started my company 7 years ago, Donovan Global. We did high-level consulting for corporations trying to integrate sustainable practices into their operations. It was everything I'd worked for. My master's thesis turned into a business model. My idealism somehow transformed into something profitable and meaningful." "That sounds incredible," Daniel said, and meant it. "It was." Claire's voice went hollow. "Right up until today, when I discovered that my CFO, a man I'd trusted for 5 years, a man I considered a friend, had been systematically embezzling funds and selling proprietary information to our competitors. 2 hours ago, the board held an emergency meeting. Our biggest investors are pulling out. The press is calling it the biggest corporate scandal of the quarter, and by this time tomorrow, everything I built will be gone. The words hung in the air between them, raw and painful. Lily had gone very still, seeming to understand that grown-ups were discussing something important, even if she didn't grasp the details. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, "because what else could you say when someone's world was collapsing?" I can't imagine how that feels." "Like drowning," Claire said simply. "Like I've been treading water for so long, working so hard, believing that if I just worked harder, cared more, did better, then I could make a difference. And it turns out none of it mattered. One person's greed and everything burns." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, and her expression went from devastated to something approaching fear. "It's the board chair," she whispered, "calling for the 4th time tonight. Probably to officially fire me, tell me not to come back to the office, start discussing legal liability." She looked up at Daniel with eyes that were simultaneously fierce and helpless. "I gave that company everything. I missed birthdays and holidays. I lost relationships because I was always working, always fighting, always believing that what I was building mattered more than my personal life. And now they're going to take it all away like I was never even there." "Hey," Daniel said softly, leaning forward. "Look at me. You're not what happened to you today. You're not one person's betrayal. You're 7 years of building something real, something that mattered enough that bad people wanted to take it from you. That's not nothing. It feels like nothing right now." "I know, but feelings aren't facts." Daniel reached into Lily's backpack, pulling out a napkin left over from their dinner at the airport Chick-fil-A. He offered it to Claire, who took it with a shaky laugh. "A napkin. That's what my empire has come to. Crying in an airport, accepting napkins from strangers." "Sometimes strangers are easier than friends," Daniel observed. "Friends have expectations. Strangers just have napkins and time to kill before delayed flights." This pulled a genuine laugh from Claire, short and surprised, but real. She dabbed at her eyes with the napkin, then seemed to really notice Lily for the first time since they'd sat down together. "You're very quiet," Claire said to the little girl. "Are you usually this patient when your dad talks to strangers?" Lily shook her head seriously. "Usually I ask lots of questions. But you're really sad, so I'm being patient." She stumbled slightly over the word. "Daddy says when people are hurting, sometimes the best thing is just to be there. Like when Mr. Hop sits with me when I have nightmares." Claire's expression softened in a way that made her look younger, more vulnerable. "You have nightmares?" "Sometimes I dream about Mommy. She died when I was 3. I don't remember her much, but Daddy says that's okay because she's still part of me, even if I can't remember everything." Daniel saw Claire's eyes widen, her gaze shifting to him with new understanding. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I've been sitting here complaining about my problems when you've been through—" "Don't," Daniel interrupted gently. "Pain isn't a competition. Your hurt is real, even if other people have different kinds of hurt. What happened to you today matters. It's okay to feel devastated." Claire stared at him like he'd said something in a foreign language that she was only just beginning to understand. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Platitudes, maybe? Or someone trying to fix me? Or someone who'd get uncomfortable and make excuses to leave." She paused. "You seem comfortable with discomfort." "I've had a lot of practice." "How do you do it? After losing your wife, raising a daughter alone, dealing with whatever struggles you must face, how do you stay so—" She gestured vaguely at him. "So calm?" Daniel considered the question seriously. "I'm not always calm. Some days I'm a mess. Some days I lock myself in the bathroom and cry, while Lily thinks I'm just taking a really long shower. Some days I'm so angry at the universe for taking Sarah that I can barely function. But then Lily needs breakfast, or she's got a school project due, or she's scared of the dark, and I remember that falling apart is a luxury I can't always afford." He reached over and took Lily's hand, squeezing gently. "She keeps me honest, keeps me moving forward even when I want to stop. And I guess over time, I've learned that things only break completely if you stop holding them together. Even when it feels impossible, even when you're exhausted, you keep holding the pieces until they start to fit again." The words settled over them like a blanket, and Daniel watched as Claire processed what he'd said. Her phone had stopped buzzing, temporarily at least, and some of the wild panic had faded from her eyes, replaced by a thoughtful sadness that seemed more manageable somehow. "Things only break if you stop holding them together," Claire repeated quietly. "I'm not sure I have the strength to keep holding." "You're still here, aren't you? Still breathing, still thinking, still feeling. That's strength. The rest is just details." Before Claire could respond, Lily climbed out of her chair and approached the woman with the kind of fearless affection that children specialized in. Without asking permission, she crawled into Claire's lap, adjusting Mr. Hops so the rabbit sat between them. "You can borrow him for as long as you need," Lily announced. "He's very good at making people feel better. And Daddy's right. You just got to keep going even when it's hard. Like when I fell off my bike and scraped my knee really bad and I didn't want to try again. But Daddy said that's exactly when you have to try again, because if you stop when it's scary, you never learn that you're braver than you think you are." Claire wrapped her arms around Lily, and Daniel saw her shoulders begin to shake again. But this time, when she cried, it felt different. Less like breaking and more like releasing something that had been poisoning her from the inside. They sat like that for several minutes, this unlikely tableau in the middle of a nearly empty airport terminal. A CEO in a $1,000 suit holding a 6-year-old and a threadbare stuffed rabbit. A single father in a worn denim jacket watching two of the most important truths he knew be proven right in real time, that kindness mattered, and that human connection could bridge any divide. Eventually, Claire's tears slowed. She loosened her hold on Lily, but didn't release her completely, as if the child had become some kind of anchor in a storm. "Thank you," Claire whispered. "Both of you. I can't remember the last time someone just sat with me, listened without trying to fix or judge or use my vulnerability for leverage." "People do that?" Lily asked, her voice muffled against Claire's shoulder. "In my world, they do." "That's a sad world," Lily pronounced with the blunt honesty of childhood. "It is sometimes," Claire agreed, "though it's a little less sad right now." Daniel's phone buzzed with a text notification. He glanced at it and felt his stomach sink. "What is it?" Claire asked, apparently having developed the ability to read his micro-expressions in their short time together. "Our flight. They just pushed the delay back another 2 hours. Mechanical issue now on top of the weather." He looked at Lily, who was starting to fade despite her best efforts to stay alert. "We're not getting out of here until at least 3 in the morning." "I'm sorry," Claire said, "though selfishly, I'm glad to have the company a little longer." "Have you eaten?" Daniel asked, suddenly remembering that it had been hours since their own dinner. "There's a cafe still open on the other side of the terminal. Nothing fancy, but the coffee's decent and they make a mean grilled cheese." Claire looked down at herself. The expensive suit, the designer handbag, the life that was currently imploding in spectacular fashion, and then back at Daniel and Lily. "You know what? A grilled cheese sounds perfect." They gathered their belongings and made their way through the quiet terminal, Lily holding Daniel's hand while carrying Mr. Hops in her other arm. Claire walking beside them with her phone deliberately silenced and tucked away in her bag. The cafe was one of those generic airport establishments that existed in every terminal in every city, serving overpriced mediocre food to captive audiences who had no other options. But somehow, in that moment, it felt almost cozy. They found a booth in the corner, and Daniel ordered for all of them. Grilled cheese sandwiches, fries that came in those little paper boats, milkshakes for himself and Lily, and coffee for Claire that she immediately wrapped her hands around as if the warmth could seep through the ceramic and into her bones. "So, tell me about your work," Claire said once they'd settled in. "Lily says you fix things. What kind of things?" "Cars mostly. I run a small garage on the east side of Denver. Nothing fancy. Oil changes, brake repairs, the occasional engine rebuild. We serve a lot of folks who can't afford dealership prices, people who need their cars to get to work but don't have a lot of margin for unexpected expenses." "That must be rewarding work." Daniel shrugged. "It pays the bills." "Well, most of the bills, most of the time. And yeah, it's nice to help people keep moving, keep working, keep their lives running. A car breaking down can be catastrophic for someone who's already living paycheck to paycheck. You must see a lot of people at their worst, stressed, scared, desperate." "I see people who are struggling," Daniel corrected gently. "That's not their worst. That's just their reality." And sometimes the most important thing I can do isn't even about the car. It's about listening, about not making them feel judged for being in a tight spot, about working out a payment plan or doing the repair at cost if I can manage it. Claire was watching him with an intensity that made Daniel slightly self-conscious. "You're remarkable," she said finally. "I'm really not. I'm just trying to get through each day without screwing up too badly." "No, you are. You've built a life around service and compassion. You've raised a daughter who—" She looked at Lily, who was contentedly dunking fries in ketchup and humming to herself. "Who is one of the most genuine, empathetic people I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people." "Well, she came that way," Daniel said, feeling his throat tighten with love for his daughter. "I'm just trying not to mess it up, though I worry constantly that I am, that she needs more than I can give her, that losing her mother so young will scar her in ways I can't see or fix." "You're doing better than you think," Claire said softly. "Trust me, I grew up with parents who gave me everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. Lily has something most kids don't, a parent who actually sees her, who listens to her, who shows up." The food arrived, interrupting the moment, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. Daniel noticed that Claire seemed to relax incrementally with each bite, as if the simple act of eating something warm and uncomplicated was helping to ground her back in her body, back in the present moment, instead of whatever catastrophic future she'd been imagining. Lily, her energy restored by food and milkshake sugar, began to chatter about school, about her best friend Emma, who could do a cartwheel, about the class pet hermit crab named Mr. Pinches, about the art project they were doing with macaroni and glitter that was going to be the most beautiful thing anyone had ever made, probably. Claire listened with the kind of focused attention that suggested she was used to processing large amounts of information and finding the meaningful threads. She asked questions that made Lily feel important, that encouraged her to elaborate on her stories. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Daniel watched Claire transform from the broken woman he'd found crying in the terminal to something more like herself. Still wounded, still uncertain, but more present, more engaged with the world around her. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said during a lull in Lily's monologue. She directed the question at Daniel, her expression thoughtful. "Earlier, you said things only break if you stop holding them together. Do you really believe that? That even when something seems completely destroyed, it can be put back together?" Daniel thought about the 3 years since Sarah's death. The dark months when getting out of bed felt impossible. The slow, painful process of learning to be a single parent. The moments when he'd been sure he was failing, that Lily deserved better, that he should just give up. And then the other moments. Lily's first day of kindergarten, her learning to ride a bike. Her face when she told him she loved him and that he was the best daddy in the world, even though he'd burned dinner and forgotten to sign her permission slip. "I believe things can be rebuilt," he said carefully. "Not always the same way they were before. Not without scars or changes or adaptations. But yeah, I believe that broken things can become whole again, even if the shape of that wholeness is different than what you originally imagined. What if the break is so fundamental that there's no way forward? What if everything you've built is predicated on a foundation that turned out to be rotten? Then you salvage what you can and build on a different foundation. You take the lessons, the skills, the knowledge you gained, and you apply them somewhere new. The work you did wasn't wasted just because the structure collapsed. The experience, the growth, the person you became in the process, that's yours, and nobody can take it from you." Claire set down her coffee cup, her hands finally steady. "How did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise, I'm just stubborn. There's a difference." "I think you're both." Lily had finished her food and was now constructing what appeared to be a fry and ketchup sculpture on her plate. Claire watched her with a soft expression that Daniel couldn't quite read. "Do you believe in fate?" Claire asked suddenly, "and things happening for a reason?" "I think, Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think terrible things happen, and there's no good reason for any of it. But I also think we get to choose what we do with those terrible things, whether we let them destroy us or whether we use them to become more compassionate, more aware, more human. So maybe not fate, but choice, intention. The decision to find meaning even when none was originally there. Well, that's a very optimistic worldview for someone who's been through what you have. Or maybe I've learned that the alternative, bitterness, anger, giving up, doesn't actually make anything better. It just adds more darkness to a world that already has plenty. Claire's phone buzzed again, insistent and angry sounding. She pulled it out and looked at the screen, and Daniel saw her entire body tense. "It's him," she said, her voice going flat. "My CFO, Marcus. He's calling from his personal number." "You don't have to answer," Daniel said. "I know, but maybe." She stood up, the phone still buzzing in her hand. "I'm sorry. I need to take this. I won't be long." She walked away from the table, answering the phone just before it went to voicemail, and Daniel watched her shoulders square as she prepared to face whatever conversation was coming. "Is Claire going to be okay?" Lily asked, her voice small. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. I like her. She's nice. And she's trying really hard not to be sad even though she is sad. That's brave." "It is brave," Daniel agreed, pulling Lily into his lap. "You're very perceptive, you know that?" "What's perceptive?" "It means you notice things. You pay attention to how people are feeling, not just what they're saying. That's a special skill." Lily beamed at the compliment, then rested her head against his chest with a contented sigh. Daniel could see Claire through the cafe window, pacing back and forth as she talked on the phone. Her free hand gestured emphatically, and even from a distance, he could read the tension in every line of her body. After about 5 minutes, she ended the call and stood very still for a moment, staring at her phone as if it might bite her. Then she walked slowly back to their table, her expression unreadable. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked, though it was clear from her face that things were decidedly not okay. Claire slid back into the booth, setting her phone on the table with exaggerated care, as if she was afraid she might throw it otherwise. "That was Marcus, the man who destroyed my company. Do you know what he said? He apologized. He actually had the audacity to call me after embezzling millions and selling our proprietary information to competitors and tell me he was sorry, that he was under financial pressure, that he made mistakes, that he hopes I can forgive him someday." Her voice had risen slightly, drawing looks from the few other patrons in the cafe. Daniel reached across the table and gently touched her hand, a silent reminder to breathe. "What did you say?" he asked. "I told him he was a coward. I told him that what he did wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. That he had 100 opportunities to come to me, to ask for help, to do literally anything other than steal from people who trusted him. And you know what he did? He started crying. Told me I didn't understand the pressure he was under, that I didn't know what it was like to be in his position." Claire's laugh was bitter and sharp. "As if I don't understand pressure. As if I haven't spent the last 7 years working 90-hour weeks, sacrificing everything, holding that company together with my bare hands while people like him were actively working to tear it apart. And now he wants me to understand. To sympathize. To absolve him." "You don't owe him that," Daniel said quietly. "Forgiveness isn't something you give to make other people comfortable. It's something you do for yourself, when you're ready, if you're ever ready." "I don't think I'll ever be ready. Is that terrible? Does that make me a bad person?" "It makes you human. Someone betrayed you in the worst possible way. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to hurt. You don't have to pretend you're over it just because he wants to feel better about himself." Claire closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were shining with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not telling me I should take the high road, or be the bigger person, or any of that garbage people say when they want you to swallow your pain for their convenience." "The high road is overrated," Daniel said. "Sometimes the only road available is the one that gets you through the next 5 minutes, and then the 5 minutes after that. You can worry about being magnanimous later, when your world isn't actively on fire." This pulled a surprised laugh from Claire, watery but genuine. "You have a way with words, Daniel Hayes." "I have a lot of practice with crisis management, just usually on a smaller scale." They finished their meal in a more contemplative silence, the earlier ease tempered by Claire's phone call but not entirely destroyed. Lily had fallen asleep in Daniel's lap, her small body warm and heavy with the complete abandonment of childhood sleep, Mr. Hops tucked securely under her arm. Daniel glanced at his watch. 1:47 a.m., still over an hour before their rescheduled flight time, assuming there were no more delays. The terminal had grown even quieter, if that was possible, and the world felt reduced to just this cafe, these people, this pocket of time carved out from the chaos of regular life. "Can I tell you something?" Claire said suddenly, her voice soft enough that Daniel had to lean forward to hear her properly. "Of course." When I was sitting in that terminal earlier, crying like a complete mess, I was thinking about ways to end things, not... She saw Daniel's expression change and quickly clarified. Not suicide. Nothing like that. But maybe just disappearing. Getting on a flight to somewhere far away and never coming back. Starting over with a new name, a new life, leaving all of this behind. "That's not an unreasonable thought," Daniel said carefully. "When everything falls apart, the idea of a clean slate can be pretty appealing. But then you came over, you and Lily, and you were so unexpectedly kind, so present, so real. And I realized that running away wouldn't actually solve anything. That wherever I went, I'd still be me, still carrying all of this pain and anger and confusion. So maybe instead of running, I need to figure out how to stand still, how to face this and work through it instead of around it." She looked at him directly, and Daniel felt the full weight of her intelligence, her strength, her fierce determination to not be destroyed by circumstances. "You did that for me. A stranger in an airport. You showed me that there's still kindness in the world, still people who help without expecting anything in return. And I need you to know that you might have actually saved my life tonight." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Claire, I didn't do anything special. I just sat with you." "That's exactly what made it special. You just sat with me. No agenda, no judgment, no expectations. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Especially in my world, where every interaction is transactional, every conversation has an angle, every kindness comes with strings attached. I'm sorry your world is like that." "I'm starting to think I've been living in the wrong world." Claire paused, seeming to wrestle with something internal. "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure." "What did you do before the garage?" "Lily mentioned something about fixing things, but there's something about the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. You seem like someone who's done more than just repair work, you know?" Daniel felt a familiar tension creep into his shoulders. This was the question he'd learned to dread, the one that forced him to either lie or reveal parts of his past that he'd worked hard to leave behind. I used to work in business," he said carefully. "Corporate consulting, actually. Strategic planning, efficiency optimization, that kind of thing. But after Sarah died, I couldn't..." He trailed off, looking down at Lily's sleeping face. "I couldn't be that person anymore. Couldn't care about profit margins and market shares when nothing felt like it mattered. So I walked away. Went back to something I'd loved as a teenager, working with my hands, fixing tangible problems with visible solutions." Claire was watching him with that analytical intensity again. "You gave up a corporate career to become a mechanic?" "I traded one kind of work for another kind of work. The pay's not as good, but I sleep better at night. Well, when Lily lets me sleep." That must have been a difficult decision. It was the only decision. The corporate world, it chews people up. It makes you think that success is the same thing as worth, that productivity is the same thing as purpose. And after Sarah died, I realized that I'd been living someone else's definition of a good life. So I decided to try living my own definition instead. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel looked at his daughter, at her peaceful face, and the way she clutched Mr. Hops even in sleep. "Not for a second." "I envy you," Claire said softly. "That clarity, that certainty about what matters. You have that too, buried under all the noise. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so devastated about what happened. You built something you believed in. That matters. What happened to it doesn't change the fact that you tried, that you cared, that you fought for something bigger than yourself." Before Claire could respond, an announcement crackled over the terminal speakers. "Attention passengers on Flight 2847 to Seattle. We apologize for the continued delay. Due to persistent mechanical issues, this flight has been canceled. Please proceed to the airline desk to discuss rebooking options. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience." Daniel felt his heart sink. Canceled, which meant they probably wouldn't get another flight until morning, which meant calling his sister to let her know they weren't coming, which meant disappointing Lily, which meant another day of using vacation time he couldn't really afford to use. "Daddy?" Lily stirred in his arms, woken by the announcement. "What's happening?" "Our flight got canceled, sweetheart. We're going to have to figure out a new plan." Lily's face crumpled with disappointment, but she fought against crying. "Does that mean we can't see Aunt Jennifer and the cousins?" "Not this weekend, baby. I'm sorry." To his surprise, Claire stood up decisively. "Don't apologize. Let me make a call." She pulled out her phone and stepped away from the table again, this time with a purpose in her stride that hadn't been there before. Daniel watched her through the window, confused. Who was she calling at almost 2 in the morning? What could she possibly do about a canceled flight? 5 minutes later, she returned with an expression that was almost triumphant. "Okay," she said. "Here's what's going to happen. I've arranged for a car service to take you and Lily to your sister's house. It's about a 13-hour drive to Seattle, which is not ideal, but the driver is experienced with long hauls and the vehicle is comfortable. You'll get there by this afternoon." Daniel stared at her. "Claire, I can't accept that. Do you have any idea what that would cost?" "I have a perfect idea of what it costs, which is exactly why I'm doing it. Daniel, you've spent the last few hours keeping me from completely falling apart. You've shared your food, your time, your wisdom, your daughter's beloved stuffed rabbit. The absolute least I can do is make sure Lily gets to see her cousins. But no buts. The car is already on its way. It'll be here in 20 minutes. And before you object again, please understand that I need to do this. I need to remember that even when my own world is imploding, I can still do something good for someone else. You're giving me that gift." Daniel looked at Lily, who was watching the exchange with wide, hopeful eyes. Then back at Claire, who had somehow transformed in the last few hours from devastated to determined. "Thank you," he said finally. "That's incredibly generous." "It's incredibly selfish," Claire corrected with a small smile. "But I'm glad you're willing to accept my selfishness." They gathered their belongings and made their way to the terminal exit where the car would arrive. The early morning air was cool and crisp when they stepped outside, carrying that particular quality of pre-dawn darkness that felt both ominous and full of possibility. While they waited, Lily finally asked the question that had probably been bothering her for hours. "Claire, are you going to be okay? After what happened with your company?" Claire knelt down so she was at Lily's eye level. "You know what? I think I am. It's going to be hard and scary, and there's going to be a lot to figure out. But I met you and your dad tonight, and you reminded me of something important." "What's that?" "That the most valuable things can't be taken from you. Your dad's love for you, your kindness, the person you choose to be. Those things are yours no matter what happens. And I built a company, but I'm more than just my company. I'm also a person who cares about doing good work, who wants to make the world better, who isn't going to let one person's betrayal define my entire story." "That's good," Lily said seriously, "because you seem really nice and smart, and it would be sad if you gave up." Claire laughed, pulling Lily into a hug. "I'm not going to give up, I promise." A black SUV pulled up to the curb, sleek and professional. The driver got out, a middle-aged man with kind eyes who helped load their luggage with efficient courtesy. "This is really happening," Daniel said, still somewhat stunned. "This is really happening," Claire confirmed. She pulled a business card from her wallet and pressed it into Daniel's hand. "This has my personal cell number. Call me when you get to your sister's, okay? I want to know you arrive safely." "I will." They stood there awkwardly for a moment, two strangers who'd somehow become important to each other in the span of a few hours. "Thank you," Claire said finally, "for everything, for sitting with me when I was falling apart, for reminding me that kindness still exists, for letting me be part of your family, even if just for tonight. Thank you for letting us help. And Claire?" Daniel met her eyes directly. "Whatever happens with your company, with the investigation, with all of it, you're going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually. Because you're the kind of person who keeps holding the pieces together, even when it seems impossible. That's strength." Claire's eyes welled up again, but she smiled through the tears. "You're the kind of person who restores faith in humanity, Daniel Hayes. Never forget that." She hugged him quickly, then gave Lily one more squeeze before stepping back. Daniel and Lily climbed into the SUV, and as it pulled away from the curb, Daniel looked back to see Claire standing there, silhouetted by the airport lights, waving goodbye. I like her, Lily said drowsily, already beginning to nod off again. I hope she's not sad anymore. I think she's going to be okay, Daniel said, though he wasn't entirely sure. I think we all are. As they drove through the dark streets of Denver, heading toward the highway that would take them north to Seattle, Daniel pulled out the business card Claire had given him. In the dim light of passing street lamps, he could just make out the elegant printing. Claire Donovan. Chief Executive Officer, Donovan Global Consulting. And beneath that, in smaller print, an address and phone number that suggested an office in one of Denver's most prestigious business districts. Daniel had thought she seemed familiar, but he'd assumed it was just the kind of false recognition that sometimes happened with faces. Now, looking at the card, something nagged at the back of his mind. Donovan Global. He'd heard that name before. Recently. And then it clicked. He pulled out his phone and did a quick search, keeping the screen angled away from Lily so the light wouldn't disturb her. The search results loaded, and Daniel felt his breath catch. Donovan Global Consulting wasn't just any company. It was one of the most respected sustainability consulting firms in the country, known for working with Fortune 500 companies to implement environmental and social governance practices. And Claire wasn't just the CEO. She'd founded it, built it from the ground up, turned it into an industry leader. The most recent articles were all about the scandal, about the CFO's arrest, about the emergency board meeting, about investors pulling funding, about the very real possibility that the company wouldn't survive. But buried in those articles were others, older pieces about Claire's work, about the companies she'd helped transform, about the millions of tons of carbon emissions reduced through her consulting. There were profile pieces that painted her as brilliant, demanding, visionary, someone who'd sacrificed personal relationships for professional success, someone who was respected but maybe not well liked, someone who wielded power with precision and rarely showed vulnerability. That woman seemed very different from the one who'd sat in an airport cafe eating grilled cheese and listening to a 6-year-old talk about hermit crabs. Daniel set his phone aside, looking out at the dark landscape streaming past the window. Who was the real Claire Donovan? The powerful CEO or the devastated woman crying in an airport? And did it matter? Maybe people were always both things. The face they showed the world and the person they were when that face cracked open. He thought about what he'd told her, about things only breaking if you stopped holding them together, about rebuilding on a different foundation, about salvaging what could be saved and letting go of what couldn't. He hoped she'd remember those words when morning came and the reality of her situation crashed back down on her. He hoped she'd find her way through whatever came next, because despite only knowing her for a few hours, he found himself genuinely caring about what happened to Claire Donovan. The SUV hummed smoothly along the highway, eating up miles of darkness. Lily slept soundly, her small body tucked against his side, Mr. Hops forgotten on the seat beside her. And Daniel sat awake, thinking about broken things and how they healed, about strangers who became important in unexpected ways, about the peculiar grace of human connection in the midst of catastrophe. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring for Claire. He didn't know if her company would survive, if the board would rally behind her or abandon her, if the scandal would define her, or if she'd find a way to write a different ending. But he knew that tonight, in an airport terminal at 2 a.m, they'd given each other something valuable. He'd given her presence, compassion, a reminder that kindness existed. And she'd given him a reminder that the simple things he did, the way he showed up for people, the way he raised his daughter, the way he chose empathy over judgment, mattered more than he usually allowed himself to believe. Sometimes healing happened in the quiet moments. Sometimes salvation came from unexpected sources. Sometimes the most important thing you could do was just sit with someone and remind them they weren't alone. And sometimes, in the darkest hours of the night, strangers could become exactly the angels each other needed. The highway stretched ahead, leading them towards Seattle and family and whatever tomorrow would bring. Behind them, Denver receded into the distance, and somewhere in that sprawling city, Claire Donovan was facing her own uncertain future. Daniel pulled out his phone one more time and sent a text to the number on the business card. "We're on our way. Thank you again for everything. You're stronger than you know. Daniel." He didn't expect a response. It was late, and she was probably already on her way home, Or maybe still at the airport figuring out her own travel arrangements. But his phone buzzed almost immediately. "Thank you for tonight. You reminded me who I want to be. Safe travels." See. Daniel smiled, tucking his phone away. Lily stirred slightly, mumbling something about unicorns in her sleep, and he adjusted her so she was more comfortable against his shoulder. Outside, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky, painting the darkness with subtle shades of gray and purple. A new day was coming, with all its challenges and possibilities. And somewhere between the darkness and the light, in the transition from night to morning, Daniel Hayes and Claire Donovan both carried forward the unexpected gift they'd given each other. The reminder that even in the worst moments, even when everything seemed broken beyond repair, human connection could light a way forward. The road stretched on, and they kept moving toward whatever came next. The SUV crossed into Wyoming just as the sun broke fully over the horizon, transforming the landscape from shadowy shapes into golden plains that stretched endlessly in every direction. Daniel had dozed fitfully for the past hour, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion even as his mind refused to fully quiet. Now, blinking awake in the morning light, he found Lily pressed against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the world stream past. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "How long have you been awake?" "Forever," Lily said dramatically, though her watch, the pink plastic one with the unicorn face, showed it had probably been all of 15 minutes. "Daddy, why did that lady give us this fancy car? Is she like a princess or something?" Daniel smiled despite his grogginess. "Not exactly a princess. She's a businesswoman, someone who helps companies do better work." "But she was so sad. Does helping companies make people sad?" The question was so earnest, so genuinely confused, that Daniel had to pause and consider his answer carefully. How did you explain corporate betrayal and financial scandal to a 6-year-old without crushing her natural optimism about the world? "Sometimes when you care a lot about something you've built, and someone hurts it, that makes you sad," he said finally. "Like if you spent a really long time building a sandcastle and someone came and kicked it over on purpose. That would make you sad, right?" "That would make me really mad," Lily corrected. "And I'd tell them they were mean and I wouldn't be their friend anymore." Well, that's kind of what happened to Claire. Someone she trusted did something mean to something she'd worked really hard to build. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this with the serious concentration she applied to all weighty matters. "But we made her feel better, right? With Mr. Hops and the grilled cheese?" "I think we helped, yeah." "Good." Lily settled back against her seat with the satisfied air of someone who'd done their good deed for the day. Then, with the lightning-fast subject changes that characterize childhood conversation, she asked, "Can we stop for pancakes? I'm really hungry, and the driver man said there's a place up ahead that has really good pancakes." The driver, whose name Daniel had learned was Robert, glanced in the rearview mirror with a smile. "About 20 miles ahead. Best pancakes in eastern Wyoming, or so they claim. We could all use some breakfast and a chance to stretch our legs." They pulled off at a small town that existed primarily as a service stop for travelers on the interstate. A handful of gas stations, a truck stop, and a diner that advertised its famous pancakes on a sign that had probably been there since the 1970s. The place was called Millie's, and when they walked in, the smell of coffee and bacon and maple syrup wrapped around them like a warm blanket. A waitress who'd probably been working there since that sign went up approached with coffee pot in hand and a smile that had seen 10,000 tired travelers pass through. "Morning, folks. Booth or counter?" "Booth, please," Daniel said, and they followed her to a spot by the window where Lily could watch the trucks rumbling past on the interstate. They ordered a stack of pancakes for Lily, eggs and hash browns for Daniel, and Robert requested the trucker's special with a side of biscuits and gravy. While they waited, Daniel pulled out his phone and saw 3 missed calls from his sister Jennifer, along with a string of increasingly worried text messages. He stepped outside to call her back, the morning air crisp and cool against his face. "Daniel, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. What happened with your flight?" "It got canceled, mechanical issues, but Jen, listen, we're actually on our way. We should be there by this afternoon." "You drove?" "Daniel, that's insane. It's like a 13-hour drive and you must be exhausted from waiting at the airport all night." "I didn't drive. It's a long story, but someone very kind arranged for a car service. We're in good hands. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Someone arranged for a car service? Who? Daniel, what's going on? I told you it's a long story. I'll explain when we get there. But Jen, I need you to do me a favor. Can you look up Donovan Global Consulting? See what you can find about recent news. Why? What does that have to do with anything? Just humor me, please. He heard the sound of typing, Jennifer's fingers flying across her keyboard with the efficiency of someone who spent their days managing a busy pediatric office. Then a low whistle. Okay, this is wild. The CEO of this company, Claire Donovan, her CFO just got arrested for embezzlement and corporate espionage. It's all over the business news. They're saying the company might not survive. Why are you asking about this? Because I met her last night at the airport. She was the one who arranged the car service. You met Claire Donovan? The Claire Donovan? And she just arranged a car service for you out of the goodness of her heart? It wasn't like that. She was having the worst night of her life, and Lily and I we sat with her, talked to her, and I guess she wanted to do something nice in return. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had softened. Only you, Danny. Only you would end up in an airport at midnight, find a crying CEO, and somehow make enough of an impression that she'd send you to Seattle in a private car service. It's not a private car service, just a regular car service. With a 13-hour drive? Daniel, do you have any idea what that costs? I told her I couldn't accept it, but she insisted. Said she needed to do something good after everything that had happened. This woman sounds like she's either a saint or completely unhinged. She's neither. She's just human. Someone who got betrayed and was trying to remember what kindness looked like. Daniel paused, watching a semi-truck pull into the parking lot. Jen, can you keep looking into the story? I want to know what happens with her company. You like her? I don't even know her. We talked for a few hours. You like her? Jennifer repeated with the absolute certainty of a sister who'd known him for 37 years. I can hear it in your voice. What I feel is concerned. She's going through hell, and I want to make sure she's okay. Uh-huh. Well, I'll keep an eye on the news. And Danny? Drive safe, or ride safe, whatever. Just get here in one piece. Will do. Love you. Love you too. Daniel ended the call and stood for a moment in the parking lot, letting the morning sun warm his face. Jennifer wasn't wrong exactly. There had been something about Claire, beyond the obvious circumstances of her crisis, that had resonated with him. A fundamental decency, maybe. A willingness to be vulnerable. A capacity for gratitude that felt rare in his experience. But more than that, she'd reminded him of something he'd almost forgotten. That he had value beyond just being Lily's father, beyond just being a mechanic who kept struggling families' cars running. That his ability to listen, to be present, to offer comfort without judgment, those things mattered. They had worth. When he returned to the booth, breakfast had arrived and Lily was already drowning her pancakes in enough syrup to constitute a health hazard. She looked up at him with maple sticky cheeks and a grin that made his heart squeeze. Aunt Jennifer okay? Lily asked around a mouthful of pancake. Very okay. She's excited to see you. Is she going to make her special cookies, the ones with the chocolate chips that are still kind of melty? I'm sure she will. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. The diner's ambient noise, clinking dishes, low conversations, the hiss of the griddle, creating a cocoon of normalcy. Robert ate his meal with the methodical efficiency of someone who'd spent years eating on the road, not rushed, but not lingering either. Daniel was halfway through his eggs when his phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it and felt his pulse quicken. It was from Claire. I know you're on the road, but I wanted you to see this. Board met this morning. They're standing behind me. Investors reconsidering. It's not over. Thank you for reminding me to fight. See. Daniel felt a smile spread across his face, genuine and surprised. He quickly typed back, That's incredible news. I'm so glad. You deserved someone in your corner. D. The response came almost immediately. I had someone in my corner. You. That mattered more than you know. Daddy, why are you smiling at your phone? Lily asked, her eyes narrowing with the suspicious awareness of a child who'd learned that adults had secret lives conducted through glowing rectangles. Just hearing some good news from a friend. From Claire, is she not sad anymore? She's probably still a little sad, but I think things are getting better for her. Good. I liked her. She listened really good when I talked about Mr. Pinches. Most grown-ups don't really listen when kids talk about hermit crabs. Daniel reached across the table and booped Lily's syrup-sticky nose. You're very wise, you know that? I know, Lily said with the supreme confidence of childhood. Can we get pie for later? That sign says they have cherry pie, and I've been very good. They left Millie's 20 minutes later with full stomachs and 2 slices of cherry pie carefully packaged in styrofoam containers. The morning had fully arrived now, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed impossible after the gray exhaustion of the previous night. Back in the SUV, Lily entertained herself with a coloring book while Robert navigated them back onto the interstate, the vehicle settling into the steady rhythm of highway travel. Daniel found himself thinking about Claire's text, about the board standing behind her. He pulled out his phone and did what he probably shouldn't have done. He started researching her more thoroughly. The articles painted a complex picture. Claire Donovan had started Donovan Global 7 years ago after leaving a prestigious position at a major consulting firm. She'd built her company on the premise that profitability and sustainability weren't mutually exclusive, that corporations could do well by doing good. The companies she'd consulted for had collectively reduced their carbon footprints by millions of tons, implemented fair labor practices, invested in renewable energy. But the articles also hinted at a darker side. Claire was described as demanding, uncompromising, difficult to work with. Former employees spoke anonymously about 80-hour work weeks, about Claire's perfectionism that bordered on cruelty, about a woman so focused on her mission that she'd forgotten the people trying to help her achieve it. One profile from 2 years ago had included a particularly telling quote from Claire herself. I don't have time for a personal life. The planet is dying. Companies are destroying communities and ecosystems in pursuit of short-term profits. If my work can change even a fraction of that trajectory, then whatever I sacrifice is worth it. Daniel thought about the woman he'd met, the one who'd cried in an airport, who'd listened to a 6-year-old talk about hermit crabs, who'd arranged a car service because she wanted to do something kind. That woman didn't quite match the driven, ruthless CEO described in these articles. But maybe that was the point. Maybe people were complicated. Maybe you could be both things, fierce and vulnerable, demanding and generous, isolated and desperate for connection. His phone rang, startling him out of his thoughts. It was an unknown number with a Denver area code. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Daniel, it's Claire. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I know you're traveling and I don't want to be intrusive, but I wanted to hear your voice. Is that weird? That's probably weird. She sounded different than she had last night. More energetic. More like someone who'd rediscovered their footing. But underneath the renewed confidence, Daniel could still hear traces of vulnerability. It's not weird, he said. I'm glad you called. I got your text about the board. That's amazing news. It's not over yet. There's still the investigation, the press, the clients we've lost. But at least I'm not fighting alone anymore. She paused, and he heard what sounded like traffic in the background. Can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest. Of course. Last night, when you sat with me, when you listened to me fall apart, was that pity? Were you just being nice to some pathetic stranger who couldn't keep her life together? The question caught Daniel off guard with its raw insecurity. No, he said firmly. That wasn't pity. That was, I don't know exactly what to call it. Recognition, maybe? I saw someone in pain who was trying to carry it alone, and I remembered what that felt like. So I did what I wished someone had done for me when Sarah died, which was just be there, not trying to fix it or minimize it or rush me through it, just being present. He heard Claire take a shaky breath. I've spent the last 7 years building walls, keeping people at a distance, convincing myself that being strong meant never needing anyone. And then in one night, a stranger and his daughter dismantled all those walls just by being kind. It's disorienting. I imagine it is. Daniel, I need to tell you something. About the car service. Okay. It's not just a car service. I mean, it is, but it's also, I wanted to do more than just get you to Seattle. I wanted to do something that might actually help. So I made some calls this morning, and I found out that your garage has been operating on pretty thin margins, that you've been doing a lot of pro bono work for people who can't afford to pay, which is admirable, but not sustainable. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Claire, what did you do? Nothing invasive, I promise. I know people. People who work in community investment, in small business grants, in connecting good people with resources. And I made some introductions. There's a foundation that specifically supports businesses that serve low-income communities. They want to talk to you about a grant that could help expand your operation, maybe hire some help, let you keep doing the work you're doing without sacrificing your own financial stability. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's a grant for qualifying businesses. You'd have to apply, submit financial records, prove that you meet their criteria. I just opened a door. What you do with it is entirely up to you. Daniel didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to be angry at the intrusion, at Claire digging into his business, at the implication that he couldn't handle his own affairs. But a larger part of him recognized the gesture for what it was. Someone trying to pay forward the kindness they'd received, trying to create something positive in the wake of devastation. Why? He asked finally. Why go to all this trouble for someone you barely know? Because you reminded me why I started my company in the first place. Not for the money or the prestige or the power, but because I wanted to help people. I wanted to make things better. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that. I got so focused on the mission that I lost sight of the individual people the mission was supposed to serve. Her voice cracked slightly. You and Lily, you didn't see a CEO or a company or any of that. You just saw a person who needed help. And you helped. So now I'm trying to do the same. Claire, I know it's a lot, and I know we just met. But Daniel, in the middle of the worst night of my life, you gave me something I didn't even know I needed. You gave me hope. You reminded me that genuine human connection still exists, that not every interaction is transactional, that there are still people in the world who show up for each other without expecting anything in return. That's everything. So please let me do this one thing. Let me try to give back even a fraction of what you gave me. Daniel looked out the window at the passing Wyoming landscape, at the endless sky and rolling plains. He thought about his garage, about the families he served, about how many more people he could help if he didn't have to choose between paying his own bills and offering someone a payment plan. He thought about Lily, about giving her a more stable future, about maybe being able to save for her college fund instead of living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, he said quietly. Thank you. I'll look into the grant. He could hear the smile in Claire's voice. Thank you for letting me help. And Daniel, there's something else I need to tell you. Should I be worried? No, maybe. I don't know. She laughed, a sound that was half nervous, half hopeful. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about rebuilding on a different foundation, about salvaging what you can and letting go of what you can't. And I think I need to make some changes, not just to save the company, but to save myself. What kind of changes? I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep being the person I've been. The person who works 90 hours a week and calls it dedication when it's really just fear of being still. The person who pushes people away because vulnerability feels like weakness. The person who measures worth in profit margins and impact reports instead of moments like last night where real connection actually happened. That's brave, Daniel said, admitting you need to change. Or terrifying. I'm not sure there's a difference. Claire paused and he heard car horns in the background. I should let you go. You're traveling and I'm monopolizing your time. But Daniel, will you call me when you get to Seattle? I want to know you arrived safely. I will. And Claire, what you're doing, questioning everything, trying to find a better way forward, that's not weakness. That's evolution. That's growth. I hope you're right. I usually am. Just ask Lily. This pulled a genuine laugh from Claire, lighter and freer than anything he'd heard from her the night before. Give that wonderful daughter of yours a hug for me. And tell Mr. Hops I appreciate his service. Will do. Take care of yourself, okay? I'm trying. You too. The call ended, and Daniel sat for a moment in the quiet hum of the vehicle, processing everything Claire had said. Lily looked up from her coloring book, her expression curious. Was that Claire again? Is she okay? Yes, sweetheart. I think she's going to be okay. Good. I told you Mr. Hops would help. He's very good at making people feel better. Daniel smiled, reaching over to ruffle Lily's hair. You were absolutely right. They drove through the morning and into early afternoon, stopping once more for lunch at a truck stop, where Lily insisted on ordering chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs because they were more fun than regular nuggets. Robert proved to be excellent company, a former Marine who'd spent 20 years serving before transitioning to civilian life as a driver. He shared stories about his own children, now grown with families of their own, and listened with genuine interest when Lily explained the complex social dynamics of first-grade recess politics. Daniel found himself relaxing into the journey, the miles passing in a meditation of movement. He dozed intermittently, waking to new landscapes, the mountains of Wyoming giving way to the plains of Montana, the world shifting and changing outside the window, while the interior of the vehicle remained constant. Around 3 in the afternoon, his phone buzzed with a news alert. He'd set up alerts for Donovan Global after Claire had texted him, wanting to stay informed about how the situation developed. This alert made his breath catch. Breaking. Donovan Global CEO announces major restructuring, pledges return to values-first business model. He clicked through to the article, skimming quickly. Claire had held a press conference that morning, just hours after their phone call. She'd acknowledged the betrayal, the damage to the company, the loss of investor confidence. But instead of being defensive or making excuses, she'd done something unexpected. She'd apologized. Not for the embezzlement, that wasn't her fault, but for the culture that had allowed it to happen, for creating an environment where people felt they couldn't come forward with problems, for prioritizing growth over people, metrics over humanity. And then she'd announced changes. A new position, Chief Ethics Officer, reporting directly to her, mandatory limits on work hours, increased transparency in financial operations, a commitment to not just advising other companies on their values, but living those values themselves. The business reporters were divided. Some called it a brilliant PR move. Others predicted it would sink the company faster than the scandal itself. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was unprecedented for a CEO in crisis to respond with such radical honesty and vulnerability. Daniel showed the article to Robert, who'd pulled over at a rest stop to stretch his legs. Your friend's making waves, Robert observed. That's either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Daniel said, but I think it's the right call. She's building on a different foundation. You know her well? Not at all, actually. We met last night. Robert raised an eyebrow. And she arranged this whole trip for you after one meeting? It's complicated. Clearly, Robert smiled knowingly. Sir, I've been driving people for 15 years. I've seen a lot of human behavior, learned to read situations pretty well. And this situation, this has all the hallmarks of two people who made a real connection. Rare thing that, especially in this day and age when everyone's so busy performing their lives instead of living them. That's either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Daniel said, but I think it's the right call. She's building on a different foundation. You know her well? Not at all, actually. We met last night. Robert raised an eyebrow. And she arranged this whole trip for you after one meeting? It's complicated. Clearly, Robert smiled knowingly. Sir, I've been driving people for 15 years. I've seen a lot of human behavior, learned to read situations pretty well. And this situation, this has all the hallmarks of two people who made a real connection. Rare thing that, especially in this day and age when everyone's so busy performing their lives instead of living them. We were two people who needed something from each other at the right moment. That's usually how it starts. How what starts? The important things. Robert stretched, his back cracking audibly. My wife and I met at a bus stop in the rain. She was crying because she'd just lost her job. I offered her my umbrella, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. Missed 3 buses. That was 30 years ago. He looked at Daniel directly. Sometimes the most important people in our lives show up exactly when we need them, usually when we're not looking. I'm not looking for anything, Daniel said, but the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Didn't say you were. Just saying that sometimes things find us whether we're looking or not. They got back on the road, the afternoon sun slanting through the windows at angles that made Lily squint and burrow deeper into her seat. She fell asleep clutching Mr. Hops, her small chest rising and falling with the peaceful rhythm of childhood dreams. Daniel pulled out his phone again, scrolling through the news coverage of Claire's press conference. There was video footage, and he clicked play with the volume low so it wouldn't wake Lily. Claire stood at a podium, looking tired but composed, her dark hair pulled back in a simple style, her suit perfectly tailored, but there was something different about her, a softness maybe, or an openness that hadn't been visible in earlier photos and videos he'd seen online. I want to be clear about something, she was saying to the assembled reporters. What happened to Donovan Global, sure? The betrayal, the embezzlement, the breach of trust. Those are symptoms of a larger problem, and that problem is me. There were murmurs from the press corps, the scraping of chairs as people leaned forward. I built a company culture that prioritized results over relationships, that valued output over humanity, that treated people as resources instead of as human beings with needs and limits and lives outside these walls. I worked myself to exhaustion and expected everyone around me to do the same. I told myself it was dedication. I told myself the ends justified the means. I told myself that the important work we were doing gave me permission to push harder, demand more, sacrifice everything at the altar of mission accomplishment. Claire paused, her hands gripping the podium. I was wrong, and someone I trusted, someone who should have been able to come to me with their struggles, instead felt so pressured and isolated that they made catastrophic choices. I'm not excusing what was done. Embezzlement is theft, and there will be legal consequences. But I can't pretend I don't bear some responsibility for creating an environment where that kind of desperation could take root. The questions came rapid fire, but Claire handled them with a grace that seemed born from genuine reflection rather than crisis management strategy. What changed? One reporter called out. What made you decide to take this approach instead of the usual corporate response? Claire smiled, and Daniel saw something in her expression that felt familiar. A warmth he recognized from the airport. I met someone last night, a complete stranger who showed me what it looks like to be present, to be kind without agenda, to value people for who they are rather than what they can do for you. That person reminded me why I started this company. Not to build an empire, not to prove anything, but to make things better, to help, to serve. She looked directly at the camera. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to rebuild this company the right way, with integrity, with humanity, with genuine care for every person who works here and every client we serve. It won't be easy. We might not survive. But if we do survive, we'll be something worth preserving. The video ended, and Daniel sat back with a strange feeling blooming in his chest. Claire had just told the entire business world, albeit obliquely, that a conversation with him had changed her perspective, that their few hours together had influenced one of the most significant moments of her professional life. It felt huge and terrifying and humbling all at once. His phone buzzed with another text from Claire. Did you see the press conference? Please tell me I didn't sound completely insane. He typed back, You sounded brave and honest and like someone who's actually interested in doing the right thing instead of the easy thing. I'm proud of you. There was a long pause, then, That means more than you know. How's the drive? Good. About 3 hours out from Seattle. Lily's asleep, Robert's keeping us safe, and I've eaten my body weight in road trip snacks. Living the dream. Something like that. How are you holding up? Terrified, exhausted, weirdly hopeful. Is it possible to feel all those things at once? Absolutely. That's basically my constant state of being. Then I'm in good company. Daniel, thank you for everything, for last night, for this morning, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You don't have to thank me. You did the hard work. You made the tough choices. I just reminded you of what was already there. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You just have to keep holding the pieces together. There's that phrase again. My new mantra, apparently. They texted back and forth for the next hour. the conversation flowing easily despite the strangeness of their situation. Claire told him about the chaos at her office, the reporters camped outside, the mixed reactions from her board. Daniel told her about the landscape streaming past, about Lily's dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets, about Robert's wisdom regarding bus stops and rain and umbrellas. It felt natural in a way that should have been impossible between two people who'd known each other for less than 24 hours. But somehow, the intensity of their initial meeting had fast-tracked a connection that might normally take months to develop. Around 5:30, as they were crossing into Idaho, Daniel's phone rang again. This time, it was his sister. "You're getting close!" Jennifer sounded excited. "The kids are bouncing off the walls waiting for Lily. I've made cookies, prepared the guest room, and Tim's grilling burgers for dinner." "Sounds perfect. We should be there in about 2 hours, traffic depending." "I can't wait to hear this whole story. About Claire Donovan and midnight airport encounters and suddenly riding to Seattle in style. It's not as dramatic as you're making it sound." "Danny, I saw her press conference. She basically credited a mysterious stranger with changing her whole perspective. That's you. That's objectively dramatic." "She didn't say it was me specifically." "Please. I know my brother. I know that look you get when you're helping someone, when you're in fix-it mode. And I'm willing to bet money that's exactly what happened last night." Jennifer paused. "You like her, and don't try to deny it again because I'm not buying it." "Jen, it's okay to like someone, Danny. It's been 3 years. Sarah would want you to be happy." The words hit harder than Jennifer probably intended. Daniel felt his throat tighten, old grief mixing with new confusion. "I'm not ready for that." "Maybe not, but maybe you're more ready than you think. And maybe this is just the universe's weird way of putting someone in your path at exactly the right moment." Robert said something similar. "Robert sounds wise. Listen to Robert." "I'm hanging up now." "Love you too, little brother. See you soon." The call ended, and Daniel sat in the growing twilight, watching the mountains rise up around them as they crossed into Washington. Lily stirred beside him, waking slowly. "Are we almost there?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "Getting close, sweetheart. Maybe an hour or so." "Can I call Claire? I want to tell her thank you for the car." Daniel hesitated, then figured there was no harm in it. He dialed Claire's number and put it on speaker. "Daniel?" Claire's voice came through, warm and surprised. "Actually, it's Lily. I wanted to say thank you for the fancy car. It's really comfy and Robert is really nice." "Oh, Lily, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Are you having a good trip?" "Really good. We stopped at a place with dinosaur chicken nuggets, and Daddy let me get cherry pie, and I've been coloring pictures of unicorns. Do you want to see them when we get to Aunt Jennifer's house?" "I would absolutely love to see them. Maybe you could send me photos?" "Daddy can help me send pictures. I'm not allowed to use his phone by myself because one time I accidentally ordered 27 rubber ducks from the internet, and they came to our house, and Daddy said that was too many rubber ducks for anyone." Claire's laugh came through clear and delighted. 27 rubber ducks does seem like quite a lot." "That's what I said, but they were really cute ducks, and I was going to share them with my friends at school, but then Daddy returned most of them. I got to keep 5, though." 5 is a much more reasonable number of rubber ducks. They talked for another 10 minutes, Lily describing her cousins and Mr. Hops, and her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who had really pretty earrings. Claire listened with patient attention, asking questions and laughing at Lily's stories. Finally, Lily yawned hugely and handed the phone back to Daniel. "Okay, I'm tired of talking now. Bye, Claire. Don't be sad anymore." "I'll try my best." "Goodbye, sweet girl." After Lily had settled back with her coloring book, Claire spoke quietly. "She's incredible, Daniel. You've raised an amazing human." "I got lucky. She came pre-programmed with empathy and wonder. I'm just trying not to screw it up." "You're doing more than that. You're showing her what it looks like to be present, to be kind, to show up for people. That's everything." They talked until the Seattle skyline appeared on the horizon, the Space Needle visible in the distance against the darkening sky. Daniel felt a strange reluctance to end the call, even though they'd be pulling up to Jennifer's house in just minutes. "I should go," he said finally. "We're almost there. Call me later, if you're not too tired." "I will. And Claire, you're going to get through this. Whatever happens next, you're strong enough to handle it." I'm starting to believe that might be true. The SUV pulled up to Jennifer's house right at 7 o'clock. The front porch lit up with welcoming lights. Before Robert had even put the vehicle in park, the front door burst open and 3 children came tumbling out, followed by Jennifer and her husband Tim. Lily was out of the car in a flash, throwing herself into her cousin's arms with the abandon of long-awaited reunion. Jennifer pulled Daniel into a fierce hug. "You look exhausted," she said. "I feel exhausted, but happy. You look happy too." And standing there on his sister's front lawn, surrounded by family and laughter, and the promise of burgers and those melty chocolate chip cookies, Daniel realized she was right. Despite the exhaustion, despite the strangeness of the last 24 hours, despite everything, he was happy. He helped Robert unload their bags, pressing a generous tip into the man's hand despite his protests. "You take care of yourself," Robert said. "And that friend of yours too. Something tells me you're both going to be just fine." As Robert drove away and the family headed inside, Daniel's phone buzzed one more time. "Claire, thank you for everything, for last night, for today, for reminding me what matters." "Sweet dreams, Daniel Hayes." Daniel smiled, typing back. "Sweet dreams, Claire Donovan. Tomorrow's a new day." And somewhere between Denver and Seattle, between crisis and hope, between yesterday and whatever came next, 2 strangers who'd met at the worst possible moment discovered that sometimes the most important connections happened when you weren't trying to make them at all. Jennifer's house smelled like home in that way that only family homes can. A mixture of fresh cookies, grilled meat, children's shampoo, and something indefinable that Daniel associated with safety and belonging. Tim clapped him on the shoulder as they walked through the front door, Lily already disappearing upstairs with her cousins in a thunder of footsteps and excited squealing. "Long night?" Tim asked, his eyes kind behind wire-rimmed glasses that made him look exactly like the high school science teacher he was. "You have no idea. Jen filled me in on some of it, said you had quite the adventure at the airport." "That's one way to put it." Jennifer appeared with a plate of those promised cookies still warm enough that the chocolate chips were soft. She pressed it into Daniel's hands with the no-nonsense efficiency of someone who'd spent years managing both a medical office and 3 active children. "Eat," she commanded. "Then we'll talk. Tim, get him a beer. Get him He looks like he needs one." Daniel settled into the overstuffed armchair in their living room, the kind of furniture that had clearly been selected for comfort over style, bearing the stains and wear marks of family life. Through the window, he could see the lights of Seattle proper in the distance, the city glowing against the darkening sky. Tim handed him a cold beer, and for a few minutes they just sat in comfortable silence while Daniel ate cookies and felt the tension of the long drive slowly seep out of his shoulders. Upstairs, he could hear Lily's voice raised in delight as she apparently shared some story with her cousins, and the sound made something in his chest loosen. "So," Jennifer said, settling onto the couch next to Tim, tucking her feet under her in that way she'd done since they were kids. "Claire Donovan. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out." Daniel told them the whole story, finding Claire crying in the terminal, Lily's fearless compassion with Mr. Hops, the conversation over grilled cheese, the canceled flight, and Claire's immediate response to arrange the car service. He told them about the phone calls during the drive, about the press conference, about the grant foundation she'd connected him with. When he finished, Jennifer and Tim exchanged a look that Daniel recognized from 15 years of watching them communicate in that silent shorthand that long-married couples developed. "What?" Daniel asked. "Nothing," Jennifer said in a tone that clearly meant something. "Jen. It's just... Danny, do you realize how extraordinary this whole thing is? This woman, this incredibly successful, powerful woman, met you at literally the worst moment of her professional life, and within hours she's rearranging her entire worldview. That's not nothing. She was vulnerable, and I was kind, that's all." "That's everything," Tim interjected quietly. "Most people would have walked past her, or offered some platitude and moved on. You actually stopped. You sat with her. You saw her as a person, not as a CEO or a scandal or any of that. That matters. And she did the same for you," Jennifer added. "She saw you as a person worth investing in, not just some random stranger. She's making calls on your behalf, connecting you with resources, trying to improve your life. People don't do that casually, Danny." She's just trying to pay forward some kindness. Or she's trying to stay connected to someone who made her feel seen for the first time in years. Jennifer leaned forward, her expression serious. I've been reading about her since you called this morning. About her company, her reputation, the way she operates. And everything I'm reading suggests a woman who's brilliant and driven and completely isolated. Someone who built walls so high that nobody could reach her. And then you did. In one conversation, you reached her. Daniel felt uncomfortable under his sister's scrutiny. I don't know what you want me to say. Yes, we connected. Yes, there was something, I don't know, something real about our conversation. But Jen, she lives in Denver running a major consulting firm. I live in Denver fixing cars and raising a 6-year-old. We exist in completely different worlds. So did you and Sarah, Jennifer said softly. She was an ER nurse working insane hours. You were climbing the corporate ladder. Different worlds, different rhythms. But you made it work because you wanted to. Because what you had together mattered more than the logistics. The mention of Sarah made Daniel's throat tighten. His wife had been a force of nature. Whip-smart, compassionate to a fault, able to find humor in the darkest situations. She'd saved lives for a living while simultaneously making their small apartment feel like a sanctuary. And then one drunk driver had ended everything in the time it took to run a red light. That's different, Daniel said quietly. Sarah and I built something over time. This is just, I don't even know what this is. Maybe it's the beginning of something, Tim suggested. Or maybe it's just a meaningful connection that helped two people when they needed it. Either way, it's worth acknowledging that it happened, that it mattered. Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and felt his pulse quicken. Another text from Claire. I know you just got to your sister's and you're probably exhausted, but I have to tell you something. The foundation I connected you with, they want to fast-track your application. They've asked for your business information so they can start the preliminary review. Daniel, this could be substantial, like hire 2 mechanics and expand your operation substantial. Are you comfortable with me sharing your contact information? Daniel stared at the message, his mind racing. This was moving so fast, too fast maybe. But then he thought about his garage, about the families who depended on him, about the growing pile of bills he'd been juggling for months, about Lily's future, and whether he could actually give her the stability she deserved. He typed back, Yes, thank you. This is, I don't know what to say. The response came quickly. Say you'll call me later. I want to hear your voice. I want to know you're real, and that last night actually happened, and that I didn't imagine the whole thing. Daniel looked up to find both Jennifer and Tim watching him with knowing expressions. That's her, isn't it? Jennifer asked. She's connecting me with a grant foundation. It could really help the business. And that's the only reason your face just went all soft? Jennifer's smile was gentle, knowing. Danny, it's okay to feel something. It's okay to be interested in someone. Sarah's been gone for 3 years. You're allowed to move forward. I'm not trying to replace her. Nobody said you were. But you're also not required to spend the rest of your life alone just because you lost her. Sarah loved you. She'd want you to be happy. She'd want Lily to see you living fully, not just surviving. Daniel knew his sister was right, but knowing and feeling were 2 different things. The guilt that came with being attracted to someone new felt like a betrayal, even though logically he understood it wasn't. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. You're never going to feel ready, Tim said. That's not how these things work. You just wake up one day and realize you're already in it, ready or not. The question is whether you're going to run from it or see where it goes. Upstairs, something crashed, followed by Lily's voice calling down, It's okay. Nothing's broken. Probably. Jennifer sighed, pushing herself off the couch. I should check on that. But Danny, think about what Tim said. Sometimes the best things happen when we stop trying to control everything and just let life unfold. She headed upstairs, leaving Daniel and Tim in companionable silence. After a moment, Tim spoke again, his voice thoughtful. You know what I remember most about your wedding? The way you looked at Sarah during your vows. Like she was the only person in the room, in the world. Like everything else had just faded away, and it was just you and her, and this promise you were making. He paused. I'm not saying you need to look for that again, but I am saying that you deserve to feel that kind of connection again, if it comes your way. And from what you've described about last night, it sounds like maybe something clicked, something real. Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time it was a longer message from Claire. I've been thinking about what you said, about things only breaking if you stop holding them together. I held a meeting with my senior staff today, the people who've stuck with me through this crisis. I apologize to them, not just for the scandal, but for the culture I created, for making them feel like their worth was tied to their productivity, for treating them like resources instead of humans. Daniel, some of them cried. One woman told me she hasn't taken a real vacation in 4 years because she was afraid I'd think she wasn't committed. I did that. I created that fear, and I need to fix it, not just through policy changes, but through actually being a different kind of leader, a better kind of human. You're helping me see that, thank you. Daniel typed back, You're doing the hard work. That takes courage. I'm proud of you. He hesitated, then added, And yes, I'll call you later, after Lily goes to bed. The response was immediate. I'll be waiting. And Daniel, I'm really glad you stopped to talk to me last night. I'm really glad you exist in the world. Tim, who'd been politely pretending not to notice Daniel's texting, cleared his throat. So, this Grant Foundation thing, that's a big opportunity. It is, almost too big. I've been running my garage on a shoestring for 3 years, doing what I can, helping who I can. The idea of actually expanding, of having resources, of being able to do more. Daniel trailed off. It's overwhelming. Good overwhelming or scary overwhelming? Both. That's usually how the best opportunities feel. Tim took a sip of his beer, thoughtful. You know what Jen tells parents when they come to her freaking out about their kids starting school or going through some developmental milestone? She tells them that growth always feels uncomfortable, that if you're not at least a little scared, you're probably not actually growing. Maybe that applies to adults too. The evening unfolded in the easy rhythm of family time. Dinner was burgers and corn on the cob, eaten around the big kitchen table, with Lily recounting her entire road trip experience to her cousins with the dramatic flair of a seasoned storyteller. She made the airport sound like an epic adventure, Claire into a beautiful princess in disguise, and Mr. Hops into a magical creature with healing powers. And then the princess, Claire, she was so sad because a bad man hurt her her company. And Daddy said just the right things to make her feel better because Daddy is really good at that. And then she gave us this really fancy car with a driver named Robert, who told us about being in the Marines and showed me pictures of his grandkids on his phone. Jennifer's oldest, Marcus, who was 9 and deeply skeptical about everything, narrowed his eyes. Did this actually happen, or is this one of your stories? It actually happened, Lily insisted. Tell them, Daddy. It actually happened, Daniel confirmed, and the look of wonder on all 3 cousins' faces made him smile despite his exhaustion. After dinner, there were board games and ice cream, and then the elaborate bedtime routine that involved 3 children, 2 bathrooms, and approximately 47 stuffed animals that all apparently needed to be tucked in along with their human companions. Daniel helped get Lily settled in the guest room she'd be sharing with her 7-year-old cousin Emma, both girls already deep in whispered conversation about their plans for the weekend. Daddy, Lily called as he was about to leave. Is Claire okay, for real? I think so, sweetheart. Why do you ask? She just seemed really, really sad, like the kind of sad that doesn't go away just because someone's nice to you for a little bit. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, struck once again by his daughter's perceptiveness. You're right. She has the kind of sad that's going to take time to get better. But I think she's working on it, and I think our being kind to her helped her remember that she's not alone. Good, Lily yawned, clutching Mr. Hops to her chest. I liked her. She has nice eyes, like Mommy did. The observation hit Daniel squarely in the chest. He hadn't consciously noticed the similarity. But now that Lily mentioned it, there was something about Claire's eyes, the warmth in them, the intelligence, the capacity for deep feeling, that did remind him of Sarah. Yeah, he said softly. She does. Do you like her, Daddy? Like her? I think she's a very nice person who we were lucky to meet. That's not what I asked. Lily's eyes were knowing beyond her years. It's okay if you do. I wouldn't be mad. I want you to be happy. Daniel felt tears prick at his eyes. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't always notice because you're busy being a grown-up. She reached up and patted his cheek with her small hand. You can call her, if you want to. I won't tell anyone you have a crush. I don't have a crush. I'm 37 years old. Grown-ups don't have crushes. Yes, they do. Aunt Jennifer told me that Uncle Tim had a crush on her for 3 whole years before he finally asked her out. She said he was being silly and wasting time. Lily's expression turned serious. Don't waste time, Daddy. That's what you always tell me when I'm scared to try something new. Out of the mouths of babes, Daniel thought. I'll keep that in mind. Now go to sleep before Emma decides you're more interesting than sleeping and you both end up overtired and cranky tomorrow. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. So much. He found Jennifer in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher with the methodical efficiency of someone who'd done this exact task roughly 10,000 times. She glanced up when he entered, her expression warm. Lily settled? More or less. Although she just gave me relationship advice, so I'm not sure who's the parent anymore. Jennifer laughed. She's scary perceptive. Gets that from Sarah. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Daniel drying the pots that didn't fit in the dishwasher while Jennifer wiped down counters. So, Jennifer said casually, too casually, are you going to call her? That obvious? You've checked your phone approximately every 90 seconds since dinner, and you have that look. What look? The look of someone who wants to talk to a specific person and is trying to convince himself he has a good reason beyond just wanting to hear their voice. Daniel set down the pot he'd been drying. Is it crazy? We barely know each other. We met during a crisis. She's in the middle of a scandal that could destroy her company. I'm a single father living paycheck to paycheck. There's no logical reason this should be anything. Love isn't logical, Danny. I didn't say anything about love. You didn't have to. Jennifer turned to face him fully, her expression gentle. Look, I'm not saying you're in love with her. I'm not even saying this is going to turn into anything. But I am saying that you're allowed to explore it. You're allowed to be interested. You're allowed to see where it goes without feeling guilty or overthinking every aspect of it. What if I screw it up? What if it's too complicated? What if it's wonderful? Jennifer interrupted. What if this is exactly what both of you need right now? What if the universe or fate or random chance or whatever you want to call it put you in that airport at exactly the right time for exactly the right reason? You sound like Robert. The driver? He sounds wise. Daniel's phone buzzed. Another text from Claire. Still planning to call? No pressure if you're too tired. But I'm here if you want to talk. Actually, I need to talk. Today was a lot, and you're the only person I want to process it with. Is that weird? Please tell me that's not weird. He showed the message to Jennifer, who read it and smiled. That's not weird. That's someone who trusts you, who feels safe with you. Go, call her. I'll make sure Lily stays settled. Jen, go, Danny. Stop overthinking and just be human. Be present. See what happens. Daniel grabbed his jacket and stepped out onto the back deck, the cool October air crisp against his face. Seattle sprawled out before him, the city lights creating a tapestry of human activity against the dark sky. He could hear traffic in the distance, the sound of life happening all around him. He dialed Claire's number and she answered before the first ring had finished. Hi, she said, and even in that single syllable, he could hear exhaustion and relief and something else he couldn't quite name. Hi, rough day? You have no idea. Or actually, you probably do, since you've been getting news alerts about my company all day. I may have been following the story. That press conference was either the best decision I've ever made or the thing that finally kills my company. The board is divided, the investors are spooked, and half my staff thinks I've lost my mind. She paused. But Daniel, the other half, they came to my office afterwards. Some of them hugged me. One guy told me it was the first time in 5 years he felt like I actually saw him as a person. That's devastating and hopeful at the same time. Progress is messy. That's one way to put it. He heard her moving, the sound of a door closing. Okay, I'm home now. Finally. It's almost 10 o'clock and I'm just getting to my apartment. I haven't eaten anything since that bagel I grabbed at 7 this morning. Claire, you need to take care of yourself. I know, I know. I ordered Thai food. It should be here in 20 minutes. She sighed, and he could picture her collapsing onto a couch, finally allowing herself to stop moving. Tell me about your day. Tell me about something normal and grounding. Tell me about Lily and your sister's family and anything that's not corporate scandal. So he did. He told her about Lily's dramatic retelling of their airport adventure, about Marcus's skepticism, about the chaos of 3 children at bedtime. He told her about Jennifer's cookies and Tim's quiet wisdom and the way family dinners could feel both overwhelming and exactly right. Claire listened, occasionally asking questions, and slowly Daniel heard the tension drain from her voice, replaced by something softer, more relaxed. That sounds wonderful, she said when he finished. Normal family chaos. I haven't had that in, I don't know how long. My parents divorced when I was young, very acrimonious. I was an only child and they basically used me as a pawn in their ongoing war against each other. Holidays were negotiations about custody arrangements. Family dinners were performances of civility that barely masked the hostility. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I think that's why I threw myself so completely into building my company. It was something that was mine, something nobody could use against me or take away. Except, of course, it turns out people can take things away if they're determined enough. But they can't take who you are. They can't take the skills you developed, the knowledge you've gained, the person you've become. That's yours, no matter what happens with Donovan Global. You keep saying things like that, things that should sound like platitudes but somehow land differently when you say them. Maybe because I mean them. I know you do. That's the thing about you, Daniel. You're real, genuine. There's no performance, no angle, no ulterior motive. You just exist, honestly. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I'm really not that special. See, that's exactly what I mean. You don't even recognize your own value. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was vulnerable. Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone else? Of course. I'm scared. Not just about the company, though that's terrifying enough. But I'm scared of what happens after. If we survive this, I have to actually follow through on everything I said in that press conference. I have to become a different kind of leader, build a different kind of culture. And I don't know if I can do that. What if I'm too damaged, too hardwired for the old way of operating? What if I try to change and it doesn't stick? Then you try again, and you keep trying until it does stick. Daniel leaned against the deck railing, looking out at the city lights. Change isn't a switch you flip, Claire. It's a practice. A series of choices you make every single day. And some days you'll make the right choice, and some days you'll fall back into old patterns. But the pattern of your choices over time, that's what matters. Not perfection, but direction. How are you so wise about this? 3 years of grief therapy and a lot of mistakes. He smiled even though she couldn't see him. After Sarah died, I had to completely rebuild my life. Had to learn how to be a single parent, how to run a household alone, how to keep showing up for Lily even when I wanted to disappear. And I screwed up constantly. Still do. But I keep trying, keep adjusting, keep choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck. That's all any of us can do. I wish I'd met you years ago. Maybe I wouldn't have made such a mess of things. Or maybe you needed to make this mess so you could learn from it, so you could become whoever you're meant to be next. Claire made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. There you go again, saying things that crack me open. Sorry. Don't be sorry. I need this. I need you. Is that okay to say? That I need you? The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Daniel felt his heart rate pick up, felt the moment expanding into something significant. Yeah, he said quietly. That's okay to say, because I think I need you too, to remind me that I'm more than just Lily's dad, more than just a mechanic, that I have value beyond the roles I fill. You have so much value, Daniel, so much to offer, and I... She paused, and he heard her doorbell ring. That's my food. Hold on. He waited, listening to muffled voices, a door closing, and then Claire was back. Okay, I have sustenance. The delivery guy looked at me like I was insane because apparently I look as wrecked as I feel. She laughed. I'm sitting on my kitchen floor eating pad thai straight from the container. This is what my life has become. Sometimes kitchen floor meals are exactly what you need. Is that the voice of experience? Lily and I had pizza on the living room floor last week because I was too tired to deal with the table. Sometimes survival mode means lowering standards. I like that. Survival mode means lowering standards. That should be a motivational poster. They talked while Claire ate, the conversation flowing easily between deep and light, serious and silly. She told him about the first days of starting Donovan Global, about the terror and exhilaration of building something from nothing. He told her about the early days with Lily after Sarah died, about learning to do pigtails and pack school lunches and navigate the complex social politics of first-grade birthday parties. At some point, Claire moved from her kitchen floor to what sounded like a couch, her voice growing sleepy. "I should let you go," Daniel said, though he didn't want to. "You sound exhausted." "I am, but I don't want to hang up. Is that pathetic?" "Not even a little bit." "Daniel, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." Do you ever, after your wife died, did you ever think you'd feel this kind of connection with someone again?" His breath caught. "What kind of connection?" "This kind. Where talking to someone feels necessary, where their voice makes everything else quiet down, where you find yourself wanting to share things you don't usually share because somehow you trust that they'll understand." Daniel closed his eyes, feeling the truth of her words resonate through him. "Honestly? No. I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd had my chance at connection and lost it, and the rest was just going through the motions, being a good dad, doing good work, but never again feeling that spark of whatever this is." "Whatever this is," Claire repeated softly. "That's the question, isn't it? What is this?" "I don't know, but I know I haven't felt this way in 3 years, and I know that scares me and excites me in equal measure." "Me too. I've never felt like this, period. I've dated, had relationships, but there was always a part of me I kept walled off. Some core piece I wouldn't share because it felt too vulnerable, too dangerous. But with you, I don't know how to keep those walls up. You just walk right past them like they don't exist. Maybe because I'm not trying to get past them. I'm just trying to see you, to know you, not to conquer or possess or use, but just to understand." The silence that followed felt full rather than empty, charged with possibility and tenderness and the strange intimacy that could develop between two people who'd met by accident but stayed by choice. "I want to see you again," Claire said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not eventually, not someday. Soon. Is that crazy? We live in the same city, and I'm asking when I can see you again like a teenager with a crush." Daniel felt a smile spread across his face, genuine and warm. "It's not crazy. I want to see you too. Maybe when I get back from Seattle? We could get coffee or dinner, something that doesn't involve airport terminals and existential crises." "That sounds perfect. Although I have to admit the airport terminal and existential crisis created a pretty memorable first meeting." "A memorable disaster, you mean?" "A memorable beginning," Claire corrected gently. "The best things in my life have usually started as disasters. Maybe this is one of them." They talked for another hour, neither wanting to be the first to end the call. Claire told him about her apartment, a sleek, modern place in downtown Denver that sounded beautiful and utterly impersonal, more like a hotel room than a home. Daniel told her about his small house with its perpetually cluttered living room and Lily's artwork covering every available surface, and the garden he tried and mostly failed to maintain in the backyard. Eventually, Claire's words began to slur with exhaustion, and Daniel gently insisted she get some sleep. "Tomorrow's another big day," he said. "You need to be sharp." "I know, Thank you, Daniel, for today, for tonight, for all of it. You're helping me survive this." "You're surviving this yourself. I'm just keeping you company." "Best company I've ever had." After they hung up, Daniel stood on the deck for a long time, feeling the cool air and thinking about everything that had happened in the last 36 hours. How a delayed flight and a crying stranger had somehow shifted the trajectory of his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. His phone buzzed one more time. "Claire." Sweet dreams, Daniel Hayes. Thank you for existing in the world at exactly the right time. He smiled, typing back. Sweet dreams, Claire Donovan. Thank you for teaching me I still know how to feel something other than just survival mode. When he went back inside, he found Jennifer waiting in the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea. So, she said, handing him one. How'd it go? Good. Really good. And? And I think I might be in trouble here, Jen. The good kind of trouble, but still. Jennifer smiled, the kind of knowing, affectionate smile only a sister could manage. About time you got into some good trouble. You've been playing it safe for too long. Playing it safe kept me functioning, kept Lily stable. And now maybe it's time for something more than just functioning. Time for actually living again. Daniel sipped his tea, thinking about Claire's voice on the phone, about the easy intimacy of their conversation, about the way talking to her felt like coming home after a long journey. Maybe, he agreed. Maybe it is. They sat together in the quiet kitchen, the house settling around them with creaks and sighs. Upstairs, he could hear muffled giggles from the girls' room, the sound of childhood joy that felt like hope made audible. His phone lit up with an email notification. The subject line made his heart skip. Grant application, Hayes Automotive, expedited review. He opened it, scanning quickly. The foundation Claire had connected him with wanted to schedule a call for Monday morning. They'd reviewed his basic business information and were impressed with his community focus, his pricing structure that prioritized accessibility, his history of working with low-income families. This could really happen, he said aloud, showing Jennifer the email. She read it and let out a low whistle. Danny, this is huge. If you get this grant, you could actually build something sustainable. Hire help, expand services, maybe even buy that building you've been renting all these years. It's too much, too fast. Or it's exactly what you've needed, and it's finally arriving. Sometimes good things happen suddenly, Danny. Sometimes the universe decides you've struggled enough, and it's time for a break. He thought about Claire, about their conversation, about the way she'd called in favors and opened doors, not because she wanted something from him, but because she wanted something for him. Because his kindness had mattered to her enough that she wanted to pay it forward in a tangible way. I need to tell her, he said, about the email. It's almost midnight. She'll still be awake. She's too wired to sleep. He was right. Claire answered on the first ring. Miss me already? Her voice was warm with affection and lingering exhaustion. I got the email. From the foundation. They want to talk Monday. Daniel, that's wonderful. See? I told you they'd be interested. Claire, this is because of you. You made this happen. No, you made this happen by building a business that deserves support. I just introduced you to people who could see that. There's a difference. Still, thank you. This could change everything for me and Lily. Good. You deserve things changing for the better. Both of you do. She paused. Daniel, can I tell you what I love about you? The word love made his heart stutter, even though he knew she probably meant it casually. What? You accept help. Not easily, maybe, but you accept it. So many people, myself included usually, are so invested in being self-sufficient that they can't let anyone in, can't admit they need support. But you let people care about you. You let me help. That's a gift. I'm learning, he said quietly. After Sarah died, I tried to do everything alone for way too long. Almost broke myself trying. Finally learned that accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Wisdom, Claire repeated. I'm trying to learn that too. Today I accepted that I can't save my company alone, that I need my team, need their forgiveness and their help and their investment in rebuilding. It's terrifying. But you did it anyway. That's courage. Or desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. Claire laughed, soft and genuine. You should write a book. Wisdom from a small-town mechanic who's actually a secret philosopher. I'm from Denver. That's not small town. Fine. Wisdom from a big city mechanic who happens to have the soul of a poet and the heart of a saint. Now you're just making fun of me. Never. I'm celebrating you. There's a difference. Her voice softened. Thank you for calling to tell me about the email. Thank you for wanting to share your good news with me. You're the reason for the good news. Of course, I wanted to share it with you. They said their goodbyes again, and this time when they hung up, Daniel felt something settle in his chest, a sense of rightness, of pieces clicking into place, of life opening up in unexpected and beautiful ways. He found Jennifer still in the kitchen, pretending to read a magazine, but clearly waiting for him. She called it good news, he said. What's happening with the foundation? And she was genuinely happy for me. Not performatively happy, not doing the socially required thing, actually happy. Because she cares about you. We barely know each other. You know the important things. You've seen each other at vulnerable moments. You've shown each other kindness without agenda. That's more real than most people manage after years of knowing each other. Jennifer set down her magazine. Danny, I know you're scared. I know this is fast and complicated and brings up all sorts of feelings about Sarah and moving on. But I also know you're falling for this woman. And I think she's falling for you too. So my advice? Stop overthinking and just let it happen. What if it all falls apart? Then it falls apart and you survive and keep going, just like you've done before. But what if it doesn't? What if this is actually the beginning of something amazing? Daniel thought about Claire's voice on the phone, about the easy intimacy of their conversations, about how talking to her felt both brand new and deeply familiar. He thought about the way Lily had immediately trusted her, about how Mr. Hops had somehow become a bridge between strangers. I think I'm already in it, he admitted. Whatever it is, I'm already there. Jennifer smiled, standing up and pulling him into a hug. Then stop fighting it. Trust yourself. Trust her. See what happens. That night, lying in the guest room with the window cracked to let in cool Seattle air, Daniel found himself unable to sleep despite his exhaustion. His mind kept returning to Claire, to her laugh, to her vulnerability, to the way she'd rebuilt herself over the course of a single day, from devastated to determined. His phone lit up one more time. Claire, I know I keep texting you like a teenager. Feel free to ignore if you're asleep. But I wanted you to know, I've been thinking about rebuilding, about what that looks like. And I realized something. I don't want to rebuild what I had. I want to build something new, something better, something that makes room for more than just work, for connection, for people like you and Lily who remind me what actually matters. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Daniel typed back, You're going to be amazing. Whatever you build next is going to be amazing because you're building it with wisdom gained from mistakes, with courage gained from surviving crisis, and with humanity gained from remembering that we're all just people trying our best. I believe in you. I believe in you too. In us. In whatever this is becoming. Daniel stared at those words. In us. And felt something shift inside him, a door opening that he'd thought was closed forever, a possibility emerging that felt both terrifying and exactly right. In us, he typed back. Yeah, I believe in that too. And somewhere between Seattle and Denver, between crisis and hope, between goodbye and hello, two people who'd met at the worst possible moment discovered that sometimes the worst moments created space for the best things to grow. The weekend in Seattle passed in a blur of family activities and stolen moments on his phone. Daniel found himself checking for messages from Claire with increasing frequency, and she seemed equally unable to go more than a few hours without reaching out. Their conversations ranged from mundane updates about their days to deeper exchanges about fear and hope and what it meant to rebuild a life after everything fell apart. On Saturday morning, while Lily and her cousins were occupied with an elaborate fort-building project in the living room, Daniel's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. He stepped into Jennifer's home office to answer. Mr. Hayes, this is Patricia Womack from the Riverside Community Investment Foundation. I hope I'm not calling at an inconvenient time. Daniel's pulse quickened. No, not at all. Thank you for calling. I wanted to reach out personally because your application has generated quite a bit of excitement here. Claire Donovan spoke very highly of your work, and when we looked into your business model, we were impressed by your commitment to serving low-income communities. The fact that you've maintained operation while consistently offering reduced rates and payment plans shows exactly the kind of sustainable community investment we like to support. I appreciate that. It's been challenging at times, but it's important work. We agree. which is why I wanted to let you know that we're prepared to offer you a grant of $75,000, pending final approval from our board meeting on Tuesday. Daniel felt the room tilt slightly. $75,000. That was more than he'd made in total profit over the last 2 years combined. That was hiring 2 experienced mechanics and still having money left over for new equipment. That was security for Lily's future. That was everything changing. I don't know what to say, he managed. Patricia's voice was warm. Say you'll accept it. Say you'll use it to continue doing the good work you're already doing, and say you'll submit quarterly reports so we can track the impact. Those are our only conditions. Yes, absolutely yes, thank you. This is going to change everything. That's what we hope for. We'll send over the paperwork early next week. Congratulations, Mr. Hayes. We're excited to support your work. After the call ended, Daniel sat in stunned silence, his phone clutched in his hand. $75,000. The number kept echoing through his mind, impossible and real at the same time. He needed to tell someone. He needed to share this with someone who would understand what it meant. His fingers moved almost of their own accord, dialing Claire's number. She answered on the second ring. Hey, how's Seattle? How's Lily? Claire, they called. The foundation. They're giving me $75,000. There was a brief pause, then Claire's voice came through, thick with emotion. Daniel, that's incredible. Oh my God, I'm so happy for you. I can hire people. I can expand. I can actually build something sustainable instead of just surviving month to month. His voice cracked. This is because of you. You made this happen. No, you made this happen by being the kind of person who deserves support. I just made an introduction. Everything else is you. She paused, and he could hear traffic in the background. Where are you? Can you talk for a minute? I'm at my sister's. I can talk. Where are you? In my car, actually. Driving to the office, even though it's Saturday, because apparently I still haven't learned how to take a day off. But Daniel, I want you to really hear this. That grant isn't charity. It's not a handout. It's recognition of the value you're already creating in your community. You earned this. I don't know if I believe that yet, but I'm trying. Good. Keep trying. And when you get back to Denver, we're celebrating. Properly. Champagne and dinner somewhere nice and a toast to new beginnings. I'd like that. Although I'm more of a beer guy than a champagne guy. Then we'll have beer. The point is celebration. The point is acknowledging that good things can happen even in the middle of chaos. Her voice softened. You gave me hope when I had none. Now I get to watch you receive something you've deserved for a long time. That feels like grace, Daniel. Like the universe balancing its scales. They talked for another 20 minutes, Claire walking him through what to expect with the grant paperwork, offering advice on hiring and expansion, asking questions about his business that showed genuine interest and understanding. When they finally hung up, Daniel felt lighter than he had in years, as if some massive weight he'd been carrying had finally been lifted. Jennifer found him still sitting in her office, staring at his phone with a dazed expression. That was quite a phone call, she observed. Good news? The foundation approved the grant. $75,000, Jen. $75,000. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Danny, that's amazing. Oh my God, that changes everything. That's what I said. He looked up at his sister. This is real, right? This is actually happening? It's real. It's happening, and you deserve every penny of it. She pulled him into a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you. Sarah would be so proud of you. The mention of Sarah brought tears to Daniel's eyes. His wife had always believed in him, had always pushed him to dream bigger, to see his own value. She would have loved knowing that he'd found a way to expand his ability to help people, to make a real difference in his community. I wish she could see this, he said quietly. Maybe she can. And maybe she's also happy that you're finding happiness again, with Claire. Daniel pulled back, wiping at his eyes. It's too soon to call it happiness. We've known each other less than a week. And in that time, she's helped you secure a massive grant. You've helped her find the courage to rebuild her company, and you've both admitted you need each other. That's not nothing, Danny. That's the beginning of something real. The rest of Saturday unfolded in a haze of celebration. Jennifer insisted on taking everyone out for ice cream, and Daniel found himself surrounded by the chaotic joy of three sugar-high children while he tried to process the seismic shift his life had just taken. Lily, sensing something important had happened even if she didn't understand the details, stuck close to his side, her small hand finding his whenever they moved from one place to another. That evening, after the children had been corralled into bed and the adults had collapsed in the living room with wine and exhaustion, Daniel's phone lit up with a video call from Claire. He excused himself to the back deck, the cool night air clearing his head. Claire's face filled the screen and Daniel felt his breath catch slightly. She'd clearly been working. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, she wore glasses he hadn't seen before, and there were papers scattered around her, but she looked more relaxed than he'd seen her, even in their brief in-person meeting. "Hi," she said, smiling in a way that made her whole face light up. "I wanted to see you. Is that okay? Am I interrupting family time?" "You're not interrupting. Everyone's winding down for the night. How are you?" "Exhausted, but good. Productive, actually. I spent the day working on the new organizational structure for Donovan Global, mapping out what a values-first culture actually looks like in practical terms." She shifted, and he caught a glimpse of her apartment behind her. Modern, sleek, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the Denver skyline. "It's harder than I expected, honestly. Dismantling systems you built is strange work. But necessary work." "But necessary," she agreed. "Daniel, can I ask you something? And I want you to be completely honest." "Always." "When you look at me, do you see a CEO? Someone powerful and put together and intimidating? Or do you see the person who was crying in an airport?" The question was so vulnerable, so raw, that Daniel took a moment to really consider his answer. "I see both," he said finally. "I see someone who built something remarkable, who has the intelligence and drive to lead a major company. But I also see someone who's learning that strength includes vulnerability, someone who's brave enough to admit when they're scared or lost or overwhelmed. I think I see the whole person, not just the role you play." Claire's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "That's all I've ever wanted. For someone to see all of me and not run away. I'm not running anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise. Although fair warning, I'm probably going to screw up sometimes. Say the wrong thing or miss important cues or fail to show up the way you need. I'm not perfect, Claire. I'm just trying my best." "Your best is pretty extraordinary from where I'm sitting." They talked until Daniel's phone battery dropped below 10%, about everything and nothing. Claire told him about the messages she'd been receiving since her press conference, some supportive, many critical, a few that were outright cruel. Daniel told her about watching Lily play with her cousins, about the easy chaos of family life, about how Jennifer had insisted on celebrating his grant with entirely too much ice cream. "I want to meet her," Claire said suddenly. "Your sister. And Lily's cousins. I want to see this world you're describing. The family dinners, and the chaos, and the cookie baking, and all of it." "You'd hate it," Daniel said, but he was smiling. "It's loud and messy, and there's no structure whatsoever." "It sounds perfect. It sounds like everything I never had growing up. Everything I've been too busy to build as an adult." She paused, her expression turning serious. "Daniel, I need to tell you something. About my life, about who I was before all this." "Okay." "I was lonely. Desperately, achingly lonely. I had colleagues and business contacts and people I saw at industry events, but no real friends. No one I could call at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. No one who cared about me separate from what I could do for them." Her voice wavered slightly. "I told myself I didn't need that my work was enough, that changing the world mattered more than personal connections. But it was a lie. I was lying to myself because admitting the truth, that I'd built this extraordinary career and lost my humanity in the process, was too painful. And now I'm terrified because I've started telling the truth, and I can't stop. I admitted my loneliness to you, to my team, to the whole business world through that press conference. And either it's going to destroy what's left of my company, or it's going to save it. There's no middle ground anymore." Daniel chose his next words carefully. "What if it's not about the company? What if it's about you? About saving yourself, reclaiming your humanity, building a life that's actually worth living. The company is my life. Is it? Or has it been a very effective way to avoid having a life? The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Daniel watched Claire process his words, saw her face cycle through several emotions: defensiveness, recognition, grief, acceptance. "You're right," she said finally. "God, you're right. I've been hiding behind Donovan Global for 7 years, using it as an excuse to not deal with my childhood trauma, to not risk real relationships, to not be vulnerable. And now the universe has basically forced my hand. Either I actually change or I lose everything." "You're not going to lose everything. How can you be so sure?" "Because you're already doing the work. You're facing the truth, making hard choices, being honest even when it's scary. That's not losing, Claire. That's winning. Maybe not in the way you expected, but in the way that actually matters." Claire smiled through her tears. "How are you so good at this? At knowing exactly what to say?" "I'm not. I'm just telling you what I wish someone had told me 3 years ago when my world fell apart. Sometimes we heal each other by sharing what we learned from our own pain." "I like that. Healing each other through shared pain." She wiped at her eyes, laughing softly. "Listen to us. We sound like a support group. Maybe that's what we are. A support group of 2. I'd join that group." Claire yawned, covering her mouth with her hand. "I should let you go. You're on vacation, and I'm monopolizing your time." "You're not monopolizing anything. I like talking to you. I look forward to it, actually." "Me too. More than I probably should, given that we barely know each other." "We know the important things." "We do, don't we?" Claire's expression turned soft, vulnerable. "Daniel, when you get back to Denver, can we spend real time together? Not just phone calls, but actual time. I want to take you to dinner. I want to meet Lily properly, not in an airport terminal at midnight. I want to see your garage and understand your work and just be around you." "I'd like that, a lot." "It's a date then." "Well, not a date unless you want it to be a date, in which case it's definitely a date. But if you're not ready for that, then it's just 2 friends spending time together, which is also completely fine." And she stopped, laughing at herself. "I'm rambling. That's not something I do. You make me nervous." "You make me nervous too, the good kind of nervous." "There's a good kind?" "The kind that means you care. The kind that means it matters." After they hung up, Daniel sat on the deck for a long time, thinking about Claire's face on the screen, about the way she'd admitted her loneliness so openly, about how she'd asked if their dinner could be a date, and then immediately tried to backtrack. There was something endearing about seeing this powerful, accomplished woman reduced to nervous rambling because of him. He found Jennifer still awake, reading in the living room. "That looked like an intense conversation," she observed. "She wants to go on a date. When I get back to Denver," she actually used the word date and then panicked and tried to take it back. Jennifer grinned. "And what did you say?" "That it's a date. That I want to spend time with her. That this matters." He sat down next to his sister. "Jen, I think I'm falling for her. Is that crazy? We've known each other less than a week." "Time is relative. You can know someone for years and never really see them. Or you can know someone for days and see right into their soul. It sounds like you and Claire are the second kind." "What if I'm not ready? What if this is too soon after Sarah?" "Danny, there's no rule book for this. There's no magical amount of time after which it's okay to move on. Sarah died 3 years ago. You've grieved her, honored her, kept her memory alive for Lily. But you're also still here, still living, still capable of feeling and connecting and loving. Sarah would want that for you. She loved you. She'd want you to be happy." Daniel felt tears prick at his eyes. "I still miss her, every day." "I know you do, and you probably always will. But missing Sarah doesn't mean you can't also make room for Claire. The heart has infinite capacity, Danny. Love doesn't subtract from love, it multiplies." Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, perfect autumn weather that made everything feel possible. Jennifer had planned a hike in a nearby state park, and Daniel found himself walking beside Tim while the children ranged ahead with Jennifer, their excited voices carrying back through the trees. "Jennifer told me about the grant," Tim said. "That's phenomenal, Daniel. Really phenomenal." I'm still processing it, honestly. It doesn't feel real yet. And this woman, Claire, she really just connected you with the foundation out of gratitude? I think it was more than gratitude. I think it was her way of doing something good in the middle of everything falling apart, of remembering why she started her company in the first place. Tim nodded thoughtfully. Jennifer also mentioned that you two have been talking quite a bit, that there might be something developing there. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. Daniel picked up a stick and tossed it further down the trail. It's complicated. Most good things are. Tim was quiet for a moment, then continued. Can I tell you something? About when I first met Jennifer? Sure. I was terrified of her. She was so competent, so together, so far out of my league that I couldn't imagine she'd ever be interested in someone like me. I taught high school science. She was finishing medical school. She was going to save lives, and I was going to teach kids about photosynthesis. It seemed impossible. But you asked her out anyway. Eventually, after 3 years of friendship where I convinced myself that being her friend was enough, that I didn't need anything more, and then one day she told me she was moving across the country for a residency program, and I realized that enough was actually a lie I'd been telling myself. So I told her how I felt, expecting rejection, preparing to lose even the friendship. Obviously that worked out. Obviously. But Daniel, the point is that sometimes the things that seem impossible are actually just scary. Sometimes the person you think is out of your league is actually the person who sees you most clearly. Claire sees you, really sees you. That's rare. Don't run from it just because it's intimidating. They hiked in comfortable silence for a while, the trail winding through towering evergreens and offering occasional glimpses of distant mountains. Ahead, Lily shrieked with delight over something, probably a particularly interesting rock or piece of moss, and Daniel felt a surge of love for his daughter so intense it was almost painful. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Claire. Sorry to interrupt your Sunday, but I had to share. 3 major clients just called to say they're staying with Donovan Global. They said the press conference showed the kind of integrity they want to work with. Daniel, I think we might actually survive this. He typed back, That's incredible. I knew you could do it. Your honesty is your strength, not your weakness. Learning that slowly, hope you're having a beautiful day in Seattle. Thinking about you. Thinking about you too. Always. The week ahead stretched before him with new possibility. He'd fly back to Denver on Monday evening. On Tuesday, he'd meet with the foundation to sign the grant paperwork. On Wednesday, he'd start the hiring process for the 2 mechanics he desperately needed. And somewhere in there, he'd make time for that date with Claire, for the chance to sit across from her at a restaurant table instead of an airport cafe, to see who they could be when they weren't both in crisis mode. The thought filled him with equal parts excitement and terror. Sunday evening, as they were packing up to head back to Jennifer's house, Lily came and sat next to Daniel on a fallen log overlooking a small stream. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always, sweetheart. Do you like Claire? Like the way you liked Mommy? The question was so direct, so fearless, that Daniel had to take a moment to formulate an answer that was honest but age-appropriate. I like her very much, he said carefully. She's a good person who's going through a hard time, and I enjoy talking to her and spending time with her. But do you like her? Maybe. It's still early, and we're still getting to know each other. Why do you ask? Lily kicked at the dirt with her shoe, not meeting his eyes. Because if you did like her like that, it would be okay. I wouldn't be mad or sad. I want you to be happy, Daddy. You're always making sure I'm happy, but sometimes I think you forget about yourself. Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. When did you get so wise? I'm 6 3/4. That's practically 7. I know things. She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes. Mommy would want you to be happy too. I think she'd like Claire. You think so? Yeah. Claire listened to me talk about hermit crabs and didn't act like it was boring. And she let me hold Mr. Hops even though she was really sad. And she sent us a fancy car because she wanted to be nice. Those are good things. Mommy liked people who did good things. Daniel pulled Lily into his lap, holding her close. You're absolutely right. Mommy did like people who did good things, and you're right that it would be okay if I liked Claire in that special way. Thank you for telling me that, sweetheart. It means a lot. You're welcome. Can we get ice cream on the way home? The abrupt subject change was so quintessentially Lily that Daniel had to laugh. Sure, we can get ice cream. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep and he'd said his goodnights to Jennifer and Tim, Daniel found himself on the back deck again, phone in hand, debating whether to call Claire or just send a text. Before he could decide, his phone rang, Claire calling him. I was just thinking about calling you, he said by way of greeting. Beat you to it. She sounded happy, lighter than he'd heard her all weekend. I have good news. Real, substantial good news. Tell me. The board met this afternoon. Emergency Sunday session. They voted unanimously to support the restructuring plan. Not only that, but two of our biggest investors who'd pulled out have committed to coming back in. Daniel, we're going to make it. Donovan Global is going to survive. Claire, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Without you showing me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that honesty matters more than appearing perfect, that people respect authenticity more than they respect carefully constructed facades. She paused, and he could hear emotion in her voice. You changed my life, Daniel Hayes. In less than a week, you completely changed the trajectory of my life. We changed each other's lives. That grant is going to transform my business, give me stability I've never had. You did that. We did that for each other. That's what this is, I think. Two people showing up at exactly the right time to help each other remember who they want to be. They talked until nearly midnight, their conversation ranging from practical matters about the coming week to deeper questions about what they were building together, what this connection meant, where it might lead. I'm nervous about our date, Claire admitted. Is that ridiculous? I negotiate million-dollar contracts without breaking a sweat, but the idea of sitting across from you at a restaurant makes me feel like a teenager. I'm nervous too, but the good kind of nervous. There's that phrase again. I'm starting to believe you might be right, that nervous can be good when it means something matters. It matters, Claire. You matter. This matters. You matter too, so much, more than I think you realize. After they hung up, Daniel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind too active for sleep. Everything was changing so fast. The grant, the business expansion, Claire, the possibility of something real developing between them. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing you were about to jump but unable to see what waited below. His phone lit up one more time. Claire, thank you for everything, for seeing me, for believing in me, for making me want to be brave. Sweet dreams, Daniel. I'll see you soon. He smiled, typing back, Sweet dreams, Claire. Can't wait to see you. To really see you in person, not in crisis mode. Just you and me and the possibility of something beautiful. Something beautiful. I like the sound of that. Good night, Daniel Hayes. Thank you for existing in the world. Good night, Claire Donovan. Thank you for finding me in that airport. Monday morning arrived too quickly. The weekend compressed into a blur of family time and phone calls and the constant low-level awareness of Claire, even when they weren't actively talking. Jennifer drove them to the airport, Lily chattering in the back seat about everything she wanted to tell her teacher about her Seattle adventure. At the departure gate, Jennifer pulled Daniel into a tight hug. I'm really happy for you, she said quietly. The grant, Claire, all of it. You deserve good things, Danny. You've earned them. Thank you for hosting us, for the cookies and the wisdom and the reminder that family matters. Come back soon and bring Claire next time. I want to meet this woman who's captured my brother's heart. I'm not sure my heart is captured yet. Jennifer laughed. Yes, it is. You just haven't fully admitted it to yourself yet. But you will, soon. The flight back to Denver was smooth and uneventful, Lily falling asleep almost immediately while Daniel found himself unable to focus on anything except his phone, watching for messages from Claire even though they'd agreed to give each other space to handle their respective Mondays. But as the plane began its descent into Denver, his phone buzzed with a text. Welcome home. Can't wait to see you properly. Dinner Wednesday? I'll make reservations somewhere nice. Or we could do something casual if you prefer. Whatever feels right, just want to spend time with you. He typed back, Wednesday sounds perfect. Surprise me with the location. I trust you. You trust me. Those words mean more than you know. See you in 2 days, Daniel Hayes, counting down the hours. As the plane touched down in Denver and Lily stirred awake beside him, Daniel felt something shift inside his chest. A opening, a lightening, a sense that life was about to become something other than just survival and responsibility. That maybe, just maybe, there was room for joy and connection and the particular brand of nervous excitement that came from falling for someone who saw you clearly and chose you anyway. The city lights of Denver spread out below them, familiar and full of new possibility, and Daniel smiled at the view, at the future, at whatever came next. He was ready. Scared, uncertain, still carrying grief and caution and the weight of past loss, but ready nonetheless. Ready to take the leap, to risk his heart, to see if Claire Donovan might be the person who helped him remember how to truly live instead of just survive. 2 more days until their date. 48 hours until he'd see her face across a table, until they'd try to be something other than 2 people in crisis finding comfort in each other's presence. 2 days to prepare for whatever beautiful, terrifying, wonderful thing was beginning to bloom between them. Tuesday morning found Daniel at his garage before sunrise, unable to sleep through the combination of nerves about the grant meeting and anticipation about seeing Claire the following evening. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal greeted him as he unlocked the door, and for a moment he just stood there, taking in the space that had been his sanctuary for 3 years. The garage was small, just 2 bays and a cramped office that doubled as a waiting area. But it was his. Every tool had been carefully selected, every system optimized for efficiency on a shoestring budget. The walls were covered with thank you notes from customers, crayon drawings from their kids, the accumulated evidence of a community that appreciated what he did even if they couldn't always afford to pay full price. Soon, if everything went as planned, this would expand. New equipment, additional staff, the ability to help even more families keep their vehicles running. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. His phone buzzed. Claire. Good morning. I know your meeting with the foundation is at 10. Just wanted to say I'm thinking about you. You've got this. Call me after? Daniel smiled, typing back. Will do. How are you holding up? Surprisingly well. Had my first full night of sleep in weeks. Woke up actually feeling hopeful. That's new. Hopeful is good. Hold on to that. Holding on to a lot of things lately. Hope. Gratitude. The memory of a kind stranger in an airport. All of it feels precious now. The hours until his meeting crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel tried to focus on routine maintenance jobs, an oil change for Mrs. Patterson, brake pads for the Johnsons' minivan. But his mind kept wandering to the foundation meeting, to the grant paperwork, to the reality of what was about to change. At 9:30, he changed out of his work coveralls into the one decent shirt and slacks he kept at the garage, for rare occasions that required looking professional. He caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized himself. Nervous, excited, alive in a way he hadn't been in years. The Riverside Community Investment Foundation occupied a modest suite in a downtown Denver office building, the kind of space that spoke more of function than flash. Patricia Womack greeted him personally, a woman in her late 50s with silver hair and the warm, direct manner of someone who'd spent decades working in nonprofit service. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming in. Please, have a seat. The conference room was simple but professional, with windows overlooking the city and a table spread with paperwork that represented Daniel's entire future. Before we begin with the formalities, Patricia said, settling into her chair across from him, I want you to understand what this grant represents. We don't just give money to businesses. We invest in people who are already making a difference, who understand that success isn't just about profit, but about community impact. Your work with low-income families, your commitment to accessibility, your willingness to operate on thin margins so that people can afford necessary repairs, that's exactly what we're looking for. I appreciate that. The work has always mattered more than the money, which is precisely why you deserve this funding. To continue doing that work sustainably. Patricia slid a folder across the table. This outlines the grant terms, reporting requirements, and guidelines for fund usage. Take your time reading through it. I'm here to answer any questions. Daniel read carefully, his mechanic's attention to detail serving him well as he parsed through the legal language. The terms were generous. $75,000 with minimal restrictions beyond requiring the money be used for business operations and community service. Quarterly reports documenting impact. An annual review to assess continued eligibility for future funding. This is more than fair, he said finally. More than generous, actually. We believe in supporting good people doing good work. Claire Donovan spoke very highly of you, but we did our own research too. Talked to some of your customers, looked at your business model, verified your community impact. Everything she said was true. You're exactly the kind of person we want to support. They spent the next hour going through paperwork, signing documents, discussing implementation timelines. Patricia offered guidance on hiring, on managing growth, on maintaining the community focus that made his work meaningful, while also ensuring his business remained sustainable. One more thing, Patricia said as they were wrapping up. Claire Donovan has been on our advisory board for 2 years. She's connected us with dozens of worthy applicants, but I've never seen her advocate for someone the way she advocated for you. Called me personally, sent detailed documentation, followed up multiple times. Whatever you did to earn that level of support from her, it must have been significant. Daniel felt heat rise in his cheeks. I was kind to her when she needed it, that's all. Sometimes that's everything. Patricia smiled knowingly. Kindness has a way of creating ripples we can't always predict. You were kind to Claire, she's being kind to you, and now you'll be able to extend that kindness to countless more families in your community. That's how change happens. One person at a time, one act of generosity at a time. Walking out of the foundation office with signed paperwork and a timeline for the first grant disbursement, Daniel felt like he was floating. The impossible had become real. His struggling garage would become something sustainable, something that could grow and evolve and serve even more people. He called Claire from his truck in the parking garage, unable to wait another moment to share the news. How'd it go? She answered immediately, her voice tight with anticipation. It's official, signed the paperwork. The first installment hits my account next week. Claire let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Daniel, that's incredible. I'm so happy for you. Patricia said you called her personally, that you advocated for me like nobody she'd ever seen. Of course I did. You deserve this. You deserve all of it. Claire paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. Can I tell you something? Helping you get this grant was the first thing I've done in months that felt completely right. No ambiguity, no moral complexity, just pure good. You reminded me why I started my company, and then you let me actually live those values by supporting you. So really, you gave me a gift too. We keep saving each other. That's our thing, apparently. I like our thing. I like it a lot. He could hear the smile in her voice. Are you still free tomorrow? For dinner? Absolutely. Where should I meet you? I made reservations at Mercantile. It's in Union Station. Quiet, excellent food, the kind of place where we can actually talk without shouting over noise. 7 o'clock? Perfect. Should I bring anything? Do anything special? Just bring yourself. That's all I want. Just you, Daniel Hayes, exactly as you are. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his truck for a long moment, processing everything that had happened. In less than a week, his entire life had transformed. The business he'd been barely keeping afloat would now have the resources to thrive. And the woman who'd been crying in an airport terminal was now the person he thought about constantly, the voice he wanted to hear first thing in the morning and last thing at night. The rest of Tuesday passed in a blur of work and planning and the occasional moment of panic about the date. Daniel found himself second-guessing everything. What to wear, what to talk about, whether he was ready for this, whether it was too soon, whether he was being disloyal to Sarah's memory by feeling this way about someone new. That evening, after putting Lily to bed, he found himself pulling out the box of Sarah's things he kept on the top shelf of his closet. Photos, letters, small mementos from their life together. He sat on the bedroom floor surrounded by memories, feeling the familiar ache of loss mixed with something new. Permission, maybe, or acceptance. I think I'm ready, he whispered to her photo, to her memory, to whatever part of her might still exist in the universe. I think I'm ready to try again, to let someone in. I hope that's okay. I hope you'd approve. The silence that followed felt gentle rather than empty, and Daniel took that as the blessing it probably was. Wednesday morning arrived with crystalline clarity, the kind of perfect autumn day that made Denver feel like the best place on earth. Daniel dropped Lily at school, returned to the garage to handle a few urgent repairs, and then found himself with several hours to kill before the evening. He went home and stood in front of his closet, suddenly aware of how limited his wardrobe was. Work clothes, casual clothes, and exactly one outfit suitable for something nice. He'd bought the navy button-down and dark jeans for a funeral 2 years ago and hadn't worn them since. His phone rang. Jennifer, calling with impeccable timing as always. "So," she said without preamble, "tonight's the big night. How did you even know about tonight?" "Danny, you've been texting me updates constantly. Also, I'm your sister. I know things. Are you nervous?" "Terrified." "Good nervous or bad nervous?" "I don't know anymore. Both? All of the above?" He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the clothes laid out. "Jen, what if this is a mistake? What if I'm not ready? What if I screw it up?" "Then you screw it up and survive and try again." "But Danny, from everything you've told me about Claire, she's not expecting perfection. She's expecting honesty. Just be yourself. That's already enough." "What if myself isn't enough?" "Then she's not the right person, and you'll both figure that out and move on." "But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to have a wonderful evening with someone who already sees your value, and you're going to let yourself enjoy it without sabotaging it with overthinking." After they hung up, Daniel forced himself to take a shower, to put on the nice clothes, to actually look at himself in the mirror and acknowledge that he was doing this. He was going on a date, his first real date since Sarah died. The significance of it sat heavy in his chest. His phone buzzed. "Claire, I know it's early, but I'm already nervous and excited and possibly losing my mind. Is it normal to change outfits 4 times for a dinner date?" Daniel laughed, tension easing slightly. He typed back, "If it makes you feel better, I've been staring at my closet for 20 minutes trying to decide between 2 nearly identical shirts." "It does make me feel better, actually. We're both nervous disasters. That's comforting. Maybe that's what makes this work. We're disasters together." "Beautiful disasters. I like that. See you at 7, Daniel Hayes, counting down the hours." The afternoon stretched endlessly. Daniel picked up Lily from school and tried to focus on helping her with homework, making her dinner, listening to her chatter about playground politics and the art project they were starting next week. But his mind kept drifting to the evening ahead, to seeing Claire in person for the first time since that chaotic airport night. His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, arrived at 6:15 to babysit. She was a retired teacher who adored Lily and frequently offered to watch her when Daniel needed help. "You look very handsome," Mrs. Chen observed as Daniel checked his reflection one more time. "Special occasion?" "Dinner, with a friend." "A friend who makes you this nervous?" She smiled knowingly. "Good. You deserve some happiness, Daniel. Go, enjoy. Don't worry about Lily. We'll have a wonderful evening." Lily appeared in her pajamas, already prepared for bed, even though it was barely past 6:30. "You look fancy, Daddy. Is this for your date with Claire?" "It's not. It is dinner with Claire, yes." "It's a date," Lily said with absolute certainty. "You should bring her flowers. That's what people do on dates." "How do you know about bringing flowers on dates?" "Emma's dad brought her mom flowers last week, and Emma said it was because they were having a date night. So you should bring Claire flowers, too." The logic was unassailable. Daniel found himself making a quick stop at a grocery store on the way downtown, selecting a simple bouquet of mixed flowers that seemed cheerful without being over the top. He felt slightly ridiculous carrying flowers through the parking garage at Union Station, but Lily's advice had been sound. This was a date, and dates involved flowers. Mercantile dining and provision sat inside the beautifully restored Union Station, all exposed brick and warm lighting and the kind of casual elegance that made you feel comfortable while still feeling special. Daniel arrived 10 minutes early and stood outside for a moment, trying to calm his racing heart. He saw Claire before she saw him. She was standing near the host stand, wearing a deep green dress that was elegant without being formal, her dark hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back. She was checking her phone with an expression of nervous concentration, and Daniel felt his breath catch at the sight of her. This was the woman who'd been crying in an airport terminal 6 days ago. This was the woman he'd talked to for hours on the phone, sharing fears and hopes and the tentative beginning of something neither of them had expected. This was Claire, and she was beautiful, and she was here, and this was really happening. He approached slowly, the flowers suddenly feeling both inadequate and perfect at the same time. Claire. She turned, and her entire face lit up with a smile that made Daniel's chest tight. Daniel, hi, you're here. You're really here. Did you think I wouldn't show up? No. Maybe. I don't know. Part of me kept thinking I'd imagined the whole thing, that I'd dreamed you up in some stress-induced hallucination and you weren't actually real. He held out the flowers. I'm real. And my daughter insisted I bring these because apparently 6-year-olds know more about dating protocol than I do. Claire took the bouquet, her eyes shining with something that looked like tears. These are perfect. She's perfect. You're perfect. Oh God, I'm already rambling and we haven't even sat down yet. I like your rambling. It means you're nervous. It means this matters. It matters so much. She looked at him directly, and Daniel felt the full force of her attention, her intelligence, her genuine affection. Should we go in? Our table should be ready. The host led them to a corner booth that offered both intimacy and a view of the historic station. They slid in across from each other, and for a moment they just looked at each other, taking in the reality of being together in person, in normal circumstances, as two people on a date rather than two strangers finding each other in crisis. You look beautiful, Daniel said, and meant it completely. You clean up pretty well yourself. Although I have to say I have a soft spot for the worn denim jacket version of you. The jacket's seen better days, but it's comfortable, and comfort matters when you're working. A server appeared to take drink orders, and they both requested wine, something neither had done at their airport cafe dinner. The small ritual of choosing a bottle together, of the server pouring and retreating, created a moment of comfortable silence. So, Claire said, raising her glass, what should we toast to? New beginnings? New beginnings, she agreed, and they clinked glasses gently. Daniel, I have to tell you something. I'm completely out of my depth here. I don't know how to do this, how to be on a date, how to let someone see me this way, how to want something this much and not sabotage it out of fear. Then we're perfectly matched, because I have no idea what I'm doing either. I haven't been on a date in over 10 years. Everything I know about modern dating comes from my sister's stories about how terrible it is. Well, this doesn't feel terrible. Terrifying, yes, but not terrible. Good terrifying? The best kind of terrifying. Claire set down her wine glass, her expression turning serious. Can we just be honest with each other? Completely, painfully honest. No games, no pretending, no trying to be cooler or more together than we actually are. I would love nothing more than that. Okay, then here's my honesty. I've been thinking about you constantly since that night at the airport. You've been the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about before I sleep. I've saved every text message you've sent me. I've listened to your voicemails multiple times just to hear your voice.